5:06. Welcome to the 9/11 War Room Pentagon discussions. As Sandra just said, yeah, if we could just quickly introduce ourselves, keep it short so it's not a whole chapter.
Right.
Whoever wants to kick off.
Yeah, I'm Xander Arena. I live in Phoenix. I've been a 9/11 researcher since 9/11, more or less, but jumped into it kind of full steam around 2010. Yeah.
Cool. Mark.
What are we doing now? I've been doing
Just
a couple things.
Who are you? Where you're at? And quick.
I'm in South Carolina, and I'm a teacher in South Carolina. One of the few who hasn't lost their mind over the last couple of years. My school's actually not bringing me back because of it. And I've been working with Lorraine. I touched base with Lorraine a year ago or so. And when I found out she was Ruby Gray, and I think I've talked to Craig McKee online and also other places. I can't tell if he's in here or not, but he will. He should be the other person I know. And I don't know if that was enough for you.
That works. Thank you, sir. Ray?
Yeah. Good evening, all. It's evening here. It's date there, maybe. Yeah, I'm Ray, and I've been looking into 9/11 for quite some years, and also the Pentagon. That's why I'm here. So I have my own idea about the Pentagon, which is hoping to bring people together and not calling them apart. So.
Thank you, Ray. Adam?
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Adam Eisenberg. I'm the founder of what I'm calling the Orion Project. I come with a perspective of 240 hours on site at the Pentagon from September 11th to the 30th. I also have a background in aeronautical parts through my experience with Pratt & Whitney, which is one of two companies that outfitted the Boeing 757-200 series with engines. My investigation and research efforts are starting to find new evidence that hopefully can be brought forth to initiate a new federal investigation into who is responsible for this. And I just want to, personally and publicly thank all of you guys for being here and all of your support thus far. You guys are a bunch of gangsters. It's great to be associated with you guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Craig, I know you just came in. Just a quick 30-second who you are and where you're at and what you're about.
Sure. Well, one thing is I seem to be failing to get my video camera to function, even though it works fine in terms of me looking at it on my own computer. But anyway, so I'm open to ideas on that. But yeah, who am I? I guess I do a blog called Truth and Shadows, although I haven't written on it for quite some time. But hopefully that'll be remedied in the near future. I work with architects and engineers sort of on a regular basis, but that's got nothing to do with any Pentagon, discussions or anything. That's completely separate from that. I guess, my position since I first took an interest in the Pentagon back in 2010 is that, it seemed clear to me that both the physical evidence did not exist for a 757 crash at the Pentagon, and also that there were some very important witness accounts that were different from, the typical ones, because they were people who didn't necessarily have any contact with each other, and yet they corroborated each other very, very, very closely. So that's the evidence that we're mostly familiar with that CIT put forward, and I think their conclusions and their research is sound. So I don't know if there's anything else beyond that you want to hear, but that's kind of my.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Sandra?
Everybody knows me. I have to introduce myself. I don't know, I've been at it for forever, and yeah, I've had my tentacles in many different groups, organizations, activities, everything from organizing with AE down to grassroots and street activism. So I'm good at organizing things, which helps for these kinds of things. And yeah, I think that talking about the Pentagon is really important. And like I was saying earlier before we were recording, even if we don't agree on everything, everybody sometimes knows something that someone else hasn't heard before. And just to become aware of certain things that we didn't know because we don't go looking for the information if it's not something we already think is important. And it might help us reevaluate something or readjust the focus. So yeah, just having this dialogue is really important. And no, we're not going to get it resolved today, unless we all agree. But, you know, Adam Fitzgerald's not here, Nelson's not here, so it might be a chance.
I would say that with those people attending, the chance will be zero forever.
Yes.
And I know that's not a popular position to take because we're all supposed to be kind of, you know, doing this. We're in this together, and we're trying to reach some sort of resolution. But I'm still going to say that because I think it needs to be said by someone that just because somebody is involved in giving their opinion on what happened doesn't mean that you're ever going to get any closer to a resolution with that person, particularly if that person is determined never to accept anything that kind of.
I know, but I still want to understand. I need to understand what it is. You know, it's like flat Earth. You know, flat Earth is so totally nonsensical to me, but I'm fascinated to hear why people are convinced of flat Earth. I just need to understand what it is.
When it first started popping up, Sandra, a few years ago, I started looking at some of the videos people were talking about because I was curious for the same reason. Like, what is it that they're, that's convincing them?
Right.
So I'm all for that, but as long as we're not naive and unrealistic.
I don't think we are, Craig. I think we're good, and we have enough respect for each other to just. And again, I'll say it like I said at the beginning of last call a month ago. I look at this like a puzzle. You know, obviously something happened. Something very specific happened, right? I mean, there's not two different things that happened. It's one thing that happened. And we're just trying to find our way towards that. And somebody's wrong and somebody has some things right. And we're just trying to weed it out a little bit better. That's all.
Don't you think it's more important to find out, to prove what couldn't have happened that's in the official story rather than exactly what did happen?
Well, I'd rather rule out absolutely what didn't happen.
Because it's, I mean, if your goal is to find out exactly what happened, I mean, we could be talking for 100 years about.
No, I understand. I'm not saying I know that's an idealistic target, but you're right. We have to start with what could not possibly have happened. So
I mean, I would just go one step further, and I'd say it's not just an idealistic target. It's an impossible target unless every single person is absolutely genuine.
Yeah.
And to think that would be true would be, I think, crazy.
Hey, I could piggyback on what Craig is saying, is that it's not only for those reasons, but we don't have access to all the evidence. So the only thing we can do is look at what they presented and say whether or not it's believable or not. When they let us, there's not one time since 9/11, there hasn't been one piece of evidence presented for public inspection that shows there was a crash anywhere by any commercial airliners.
I would say that's a good point in that working with some people, saying that there was or was not plane parts were not plane parts on the lawn or in the building.
I didn't say there weren't plane parts on the lawn.
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying
there hasn't been anything that we've been allowed to look at.
Yes, that's
public.
If I could finish my sentence. If I could finish my sentence, what I was about to say was none of it's been cataloged. It's been FOIA requested over and over and over, but it's never been released, and we don't even know where these materials are stored. So it's not that it doesn't exist. I agree with you. It's that we haven't. It may exist. We just haven't been presented it or have access to it. Go ahead, Xander. You're muted.
And Adam has his hand up too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Adam's first. Adam.
I was just going to say, you guys, not trying to in any way peacock, just state facts. When I was with Alpha Company, we had to have access to what's known as a PSD. That's a Presidential Security Detail clearance that allows us to have weapons on the White House lawn. So the government gave me that, so they trust me. We also had time on site. Well, after I was on site, I got cleared through the FAA and through the Lufthansa organization to do incoming and outgoing cargo inspections, which allowed parts to come off the planes at Logan, bypass customs agents, and come directly to me. So I could serve basically as a US customs agent. So once again, that's authority that the government once gave me. So when we talk about FOIA requests and information that we're trying to obtain, if they ever try to pull some type of stunt with me and say, you don't have access to this information, you don't have the requests, well, I can show them proof where that has been the case before. And so that's one of the efforts that I'm going to try and make with my FOIA requests. So if, you know, all these things we're talking about as far as information requests, that's one of my ways around that. I hope that makes sense to you guys. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Okay, Gene, I'm sorry,
Let
I'm
me
just going to
add real
mention.
fast, Sandra, I just wanted to say, when we
Yeah.
talk about discovering what happened, you know, it could be many things that did happen, but I think what you meant is there was one instance of events there,
Yeah,
whatever they were. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Lorraine was trying to log in and she's trying to connect to audio, which is something we've never tried before, because she's coming in through the phone and not through a video. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you, Gene, at your end, need to let her in, because she tried and she couldn't get in.
I saw her in here and then she disappeared.
Yeah.
Right.
Does anyone
I
have
don't
a
know.
problem with video cameras not, video not working with anybody else, or is it just me?
That's just-
Craig, hover your mouse over your screen and hit the three little dots on there. And when you hit those three little dots, do you see an option to start your
Three little
video?
dots, where are the three little dots?
Hover upper right corner, you see the three little dots over your name. And you're like Hollywood Square. And when you hit that, then the second option down should say start video.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not seeing this, okay, wait a minute, where it says view?
Hover your mouse over your square. And you'll.
Oh, my square, okay, yes, I see what you mean, okay, yes, got it. Start video.
There you go.
I think
Okay,
we're
let me
gonna
try
see
that.
him.
That should do it for you.
That's just,
I thought it would have worked.
Yeah. How do I raise my hand? I don't have that feature.
Down on the bottom, if you hover over
Reactions.
reactions, thank you.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, raise hand. Yeah, you're right.
Got it.
In
Cool.
1 minute, whoever's talking, I'm going to be interrupting. Every day at 5:20, I just say a quick prayer. If you're not religious, just chill, but that's in a minute. So wherever we go.
All good, man. Love it.
Who's got a minute of stuff to say?
Ed Brotherton.
Not you, Ray.
Okay.
That's
I'm glad that Ed's here. I really want
Yes.
somebody with such a firm position on the other stance to hear what I
Yes.
have to say today.
Yeah.
And to watch it with me.
I was hoping that David Chandler would be able to make it, but he's in a like 3-month camping extravaganza and he hasn't even looked at his phone, because in Messenger it tells you if somebody saw your message, you didn't even see it. So
It's okay.
that's awesome to go camping that long. I could do it for a short while, but not for 3 months.
What do you think he works in the parks, right? As like a campground host or something? Or is that, am I wrong? about
Oh, maybe that's it. All
Mhm.
right, there it is. Hang on a second while we just take a moment. Lord, I just lift this up to you. I thank you so much for these hearts and minds that want to be part of this. We're all ultimately looking for justice, Lord, and I just thank you that you would light our past, give us the wisdom to think things through, that the truth that we're going for, that it would just resonate with people, their hearts and minds, that we could truly see 9/11 justice someday. In your name I pray, amen. Thank you. All right, every day 5:20, if you want to set your alarm, Eastern Standard Time, all around the world, we just ask for people to just take a moment. If you're not religious, scream, chant, pray, whatever you want to do. That's that.
Okay. Xander wanted to present something. I know Mark wanted to present a small synopsis of where he's coming from. I don't know if anybody has anything specific that they want to present, or if they're just more interested in weighing in on what is being presented and said.
I'd like to quickly ask a question to the group. I'm aware of, I thought I heard 3 rebuttals to the evidence that I presented at Richard Gage's conference. One of them was the frame rate of the camera. one that as a possible issue. The other was distortion. And could somebody remind me, please, what was the third thing that they said invalidated or, what not my conclusions? Does anybody remember?
I cannot
Was
remember.
it shutter speed?
It could have been. I wasn't here for the rebuttal, so I don't know.
Oh,
But I can talk about that. Shutter speed, sure. I mean,
I believe it was.
yeah.
it
I
was-
mean, that is different than frame rate. We have frame rate, and then we have shutter speed. Yeah, so it could be shutter speed. It could also be the speed of the aircraft. I don't know if that was something, but or whatever it was.
I think it was
mean,
Chandler. I don't know what it. Some of the spatial distortion. I don't know what it was.
All right, so we'll talk about those things. I can hit on that. And may I screen share real fast?
Yes, please.
All right, let's see if I can get that going. All right, so this is
If you could just recap real quick what you're going to explain here.
Yeah, and I'll try to do a fast version, guys, because I don't want to gobble up our whole afternoon. But basically, this is it's an analysis of the Pentagon security camera footage coupled with satellite imagery of the Pentagon from 2001, which was garnered by using Google Earth. So these are tools that are available for all of us. We can all go to Google Earth. We can all use the sliding scale to go backwards in time, and we can review these pictures ourselves. And of course, this is all FOIA released camera footage. It's available on YouTube and online, and we have it in the 9/11 data sets, the original releases. We have all of the original footage that came out. What we're going to talk about here, I don't want to completely redo the presentation I gave on Richard's conference, but the thrust of it is that when we analyze the size of an aircraft, forgive me, you guys can see my my navigation on the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So basically, when we overlay the size of a 757, we discovered that it's actually pretty large on the lawn. That's never really been contested, but when we compare it to the camera, we see that it's not quite big enough. And the other real, the big takeaway from the conference with Richard is that the center of the field of view has been incorrectly interpreted in the past by others, including even in Mizuko's New Pearl Harbor. And other sources that I've seen, they weren't getting the center of the field of view quite right. They had it placed roughly here, which is south of this corner protrusion on the building. And so when you do pixel analysis measurements of the camera frame rate, and you can see my mouse cursor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. You'll notice that the center of the field of view, even just visually without measuring via pixels, is right around here. And so Ray, I do see your hand for a question. I'd like, if you don't mind, if I can just kind of plow through this. Are you okay with saving questions towards the end? I just don't want to get derailed. Okay, thank you, sir. So once we align the camera correctly, the camera has a 75-degree field of view. This is such an important facet of this analysis, and that is dictated by the focal length of the camera, the camera itself, and the lens. The purpose of this camera was not wide-angle field of view coverage of the lawn. The purpose of this camera was to have an enlarged view of the driver of a vehicle moving through the security gate. And it was a 75-degree field of view with a barrel effect on the center to enlarge the person's face in the vehicle passing through.
Could you explain, does that just mean it's more magnified in the center?
Yeah, it's more magnified in the center. It's like at a distortion where it kind of bubbles the image out a little bit in the center. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Like a fisheye kind of a.
It's like a fisheye. It's like a fisheye. But
Thank
a lot of fisheyes that you're used to seeing, like for example, with your doorbell, that has a much wider field of view because it also wants to give you the peripherals, right? For safety. You want to know if somebody is creeping right on your door, what have you, like trailer fisheye views, same thing. You're getting that wide periphery. That's not the purpose of this camera. So this camera has the 75-degree field of view with a little bit of a enlargement in the middle. And let me see if I can't find, okay, so this is the correctly applied field of view. So this red line is north of the protrusion. That's the center of the image, okay, on the thing. And this means that 75 degrees is here to the west and here coming through the middle of the building to the east. And I overlaid protractors. So you guys can all fact check this. You can see how it's actually derived. This means 37.5, the halfway of 75, comes off to the east. And you'll notice that this line extends east of these two trees. Previously, it had been thought to be over there. Comes all the way down. It's east of these trees right here. So it's east of here. And it actually intersects these trees. And then it comes down and you've got some buildings in the background there. Everything that you see in that camera is in this space right here. Everything. It doesn't matter how distorted it is. It doesn't matter how small it is. It doesn't matter how large it is. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, warped or completely normal. It is limited to this field of view.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're working with. And the implications of this are grave for the official story, because when we overlie an airplane that is limited by that, this blue line now, that's the same line. That's the outer field of view. Okay, so now our airplane sits halfway to the face of the building along the official flight path. Halfway. It's that big, right? So it's massive. So I argued, okay, if the airplane fills up half of the screen, right, or half of the field of view, it should look and I'm going to jump to this picture right here. You should see it. This is the edge of the field of view over here on the right. Let me make sure that chat window is not covering me, actually. Okay.
No, we can't see it anyway. You're good.
You can't see the chat window? Okay. Nope. Well, my mouse was kind of in the way there. Let me move you over. I'm going to move you guys down there. All right, cool. You're at the bottom. Okay, so here you go. So this is that outer edge, right?
Hang on 1 second. Lorraine, thanks for joining. Hopefully you can hear us. Just sound check if you can hear us. Thank you for being up at 7 a.m. in Tasmania.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Xander.
Southern Hemisphere on board. Awesome. Okay, so over here, this is the edge, and you know, I'll show you guys again that this line right here, this edge right there, that's it. We can't collect light outside of that area. We don't see it. We will never see it. Whatever is on the other side of that, you cannot see with this camera. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether this portion is distorted or not. Anything outside there doesn't exist, which means anything outside to the west of this line also does not exist in this image. Everything in this image is in this space right here. So how do we deal with an aircraft that is half the size going to the thing? Well, I argued that the aircraft should be, you know, come out to right about there, because here's the impact point is like right here, right behind that tree there. So the aircraft should be right here. And so it should fill at least this much space, right? Mm-hmm. And the rebuttal to this that I'm now going to address with the distortion is, well, there's this barrel effect, and then there's, you have to invert it with the pincushion effect. And so you have to kind of stretch everything out, right, to get the true scope of the aircraft. And that's the argument. Okay, fair enough. However, let's walk that through. If you were to take an object right here, and I don't have the full plane. Well, none of us have the full plane, because all we got to see was this little nose of something. So let's pretend that these green trees, for argument's sake, are the airplane that they said, right? And they're now arguing that, well, truly to get the dimensions of it, you would have to apply this pincushion effect and stretch these trees out, right? You'd have to stretch them out, okay? And that only if you stretch them out would you get the true measurement. Okay, now I'm going to tell you right now that's not correct. And here's why. If you were to stretch those out, what you would, and stretch them out so that the image you're looking at would also elongate that way, what you are effectively doing is artificially making the field of view larger, which is impossible because we never collected that light outside of that space. So what you have to do instead is, if you are going to stretch that out, you have to stretch it out while concurrently kind of shrinking the middle. It all has to still fit in this same frame. Okay, the relative light between the farthest aspect on the right side of the screen and the left is the limits of what we can work with. And any distortion or changing has to happen within that confined space, because that is all that the camera ever captured. Okay, so here's what happens if you try to distort this. Watch, we're going to flip to the next camera. And this is, look at this. Okay. It is not correct to say that you should stretch this out to get the true field of view, because look what happens here. You'd be stretching out this cone. Is this cone really in reality twice the width of this? No, it's not. It's the same cone as all these other cones. The dimensions here are accurate. There is no distortion that artificially, really truncates this down, or else this cone would be substantially thinner than it is. This is your standard parking cone. It's all right in front of us right here. The dimensions are true. This column, if you were to stretch this out to make the plane fit a 757 dimension, then this column would again also be artificially wide. Not true in reality. We see that in the plan view. We've got some great images from satellite imagery from 9/11. Let me see if I can pull one of those up. Yeah, it's here, where you can actually see these camera posts. Okay, so I don't know if I can zoom for you guys. Yeah. So, okay, so we can see the camera post. Now that's shadow right there, right? We can look at all these other things like this little trailer deal. Shadow comes off to the right, sun's over to, that's the west because we're looking south. And, but there's our little camera post. It's a small little deal. It's the same width as this little deal here, roughly. I mean, within, fractions, it's the same little rectangular thing. I have better images of this as well that aren't in this PowerPoint, but I have, proven to myself, which is the only reason I would come to a public forum or a recorded internet or anything else if I didn't think that this would stand up in a court of law. That is where, when I present evidence on 9/11, that is the threshold that I meet. I would be willing to be challenged by attorneys, the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI. I don't care, whoever you want, any expert in any field, and this is going to be an accurate interpretation. So, the dilemma is, another thing that we can do actually also, just to kind of validate this, is you can actually, so the second camera, the camera that took this image right here, the camera that's at the security gate that sees the security post, if you look at this, it's another way of just validating this field of view stuff. The camera sat right here, just to the west of the security gate. And if you draw a line through it and the next post, you see that it actually comes right through the middle right here. And that right through the middle is basically right there with just a little bit of margin off to the right, and so that little bit of margin is what we've already discussed. It's that outer 75-degree area, which is well within the bounds of these trees. So the thing about distortion is, was there distortion in the image? Yeah, absolutely. Did it change or does it implicate the findings? No, it does not. And so that's a big takeaway with this thing. And I'll tell you guys, I've played around with Photoshop a bit, and I've actually applied the pincushion effect. I'll just tell you where I'm at with the situation right now. Let me get a full frame image. Okay, here's a full frame image. When I do the pincushion to, like, say, straighten out the building, because you can see it curving, right? And you kind of straighten it out. Unfortunately, what Photoshop does is artificially stretches everything out. And so when I stretch everything out, I don't get a 757 that's as large as 155 feet. I don't get that. But the one thing that I do get is I get some dilemmas with the measurement of the distance between the building and here, because it's actually pulling things and it shifts some of the angular measurements. Again, it does not shift the total field of view of the camera. That's still there. But it means that to bring to the table a pincushion applied distortion removal effect, to straighten out the building, I then need to artificially, or, I need to apply some additional stuff to shrink everything down. And Photoshop is a little bit imperfect in doing that. So, and, I'm busy, I'm working full time. I got a family, I got activities. I mean, I love bringing this to you guys, but I'm not quite there yet to be able to dial in every measurement. And the reason every measurement is important to do this step, which I would like to do at some point, is that when that step is done, we can derive a true length of this, whatever it is. And I think it's going to come into the range of Sky Warrior. I think that's going to be the dimensions. I think it's too small, or too large for a Global Hawk. I don't think it really looks like a Global Hawk anyways, but those have been some of the things that others have proffered as possibilities. And I think it's actually going to end up aligning with the dimensions of a Sky Warrior, but I'm not there yet. So that's just a thought. Now let's talk about some of the other things they talked about. They talked about shutter speed. All right, so let's think about
real quick.
Yes.
Anybody having a question on anything he said there?
Yeah, good.
Any question or any comment or any? Okay, hearing none, go ahead.
Okay, guys, and if something comes up on this first
But
point.
there was a question about how we know if it wasn't a cropped image at some point, or whether it was recorded the entire frame, et cetera, or the entire use of the entire sensor, et cetera, you know.
Okay, that's a good question. The camera itself dictates the 75 degrees, and then so you have to, we do know
The camera or the lens?
The lens, which then
Okay.
feeds light to the camera.
Right.
Okay, so we do know the center of the field of view, right? We know that. We see actually in this image, you can see this this effect right here. You see that little forget the technical
Little vignetting.
vignette. Yep. You got the vignetting on all sides. You know, further kind of showing that this thing is truly like, you know, centralized. They're not doing like an artificial clip of anything. The only time I ever wondered if they actually did maybe, and you know, forgive me of accusing whoever released this footage of not being 100%, but if you look at the image, you see a little bit of like graininess on the right-hand side that you don't see quite as much of on the left. And I have wondered if they didn't artificially apply this vignette and maybe, you know, remove a little bit of something on there. I don't know the answer to that for sure. So I'll just leave it at that, you know.
Because those two corners on the left are not there on the right also.
Yeah. You see a tiny bit up here. If you look, Sandra, on the right, it's subtle. On some of the other frames, it actually enlarges because it kind of has to do with the amount of light coming in, how the vignette, yeah.
If I can make a comment about this, what you're seeing here is not necessarily a vignette with respect to the focus plane and the lens coming up to the sensor. It could also be the fact that I don't know if the camera is inside of a housing. I believe it is.
Yeah,
but the housing, the frame around that creates the housing could be getting into frame.
Yeah, that it's
and also too, if you know, just because you're seeing a vignette does not necessarily mean that it wasn't cropped in some way. Because in fact, it could have been a more severe vignette and they cropped it to take some of it out. So do we know that?
Okay, so let's think about what you're saying, all right? Because these are good questions. I mean, right? They could have doctored this footage before they released it, but let's go back to the 75 degrees. If they cropped it, that means we're seeing even less lawn. This is not helpful to them. That means that this plane should be even larger in the image. So if they've cropped anything out from here, it's even worse for them.
I think it'd be the opposite though. If you're cropping, that means you're pulling information out from the edges.
You cannot change the field of view of the glass.
You're right.
From the lens.
But you can change what you see.
You can only shrink it. You cannot add more light that was never collected by glass that is incapable of collecting that light. This camera is incapable of collecting light outside.
You guys got to dumb that down for me a little bit there.
Yeah, it was incapable of collecting light outside of 75 degrees. Okay, so that means that there's no way that it could have collected light in this portion of the lawn, meaning no way it could have made an image of any sort, because what is an image? It's the collection of light. Okay. So when you take
as long as it's not
light from some field of view, and if that light is not in your field of view, you don't have a picture. And so the camera doesn't have a picture of anything here. So if they cropped anything, then they're cropping something within this space right here, because the constraints of field of view are defined by the physical parameters of the lens. Now you can artificially reduce it, right, by cropping. That's cropping, but that doesn't change the field of view of a camera. Right, like I can't take my 120 degree security cam outside my house and turn it into 130. I can't. I can artificially crop it so it only shows my family or me 90 degrees of footage, so we're not always looking at the neighbors. I can do that, right? But I can't make it see 130 degrees. It's impossible.
Are you saying like I can't take a yeah, I would debate you on that, but I won't get into that. And it's a lot more advanced than what most people are
similarly
here. And it wouldn't matter anyway. But here's another question now. What's the source for what type of lens we're dealing with?
FOIA released.
Really? And what did they say? What type of lens was it? What was the millimeter? It was 73
I
millimeters.
don't have it handy in front of me, but all of those parameters are available in the 9/11 data set, and they were
Okay.
all FOIA released by the government.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right, great.
so you know, it's listen.
Because
This
it's
the
dependent
corner that-
upon it's
that
dependent
the
upon
world has been
lens.
backed into.
Right, it's dependent upon lens and sensor size, just FYI. But they're not going to put a lens
right,
on the
no,
camera that doesn't match the sensor.
Physical constraints of the machine. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing you talked about was, let's say this camera is nested in a box of some sort, right?
Mhm.
And you're
Right.
talking about that. Same implications. If anything, then all that means is that the box is artificially reducing the amount of light that's going to get in, meaning that anything you're seeing in the picture would actually have, you know, would move the plane closer. Now, when I talk about moving the plane closer,
Unless again, we're talking about a more severe vignette, but then they cropped it on the right and they cropped it in order to reduce that severity of vignette. So in other words, if you didn't have the vignette, we probably see more plane. But I don't know if that's the case. I doubt it is. I'm just putting out a devil's advocate scenario here for you.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you would maybe see more plane that way.
So,
However,
yeah, your vignette is going to be your vignette is here, but it could have been a more severe vignette where it's out here capturing more light, but then they crop it in order to keep that, in order to not show the vignette for whatever reason, just maybe because it's more aesthetically pleasing. So when you crop it, then you bring in all that information.
yeah.
So, but I don't know if that's actually occurred or not.
Yeah, and I don't think it did, but if it did, now think about what you just said. If they cropped it, that means that, let's say you want to say that this is the plane, right? Or whatever it is, that this is the thing. Would you agree with that that's that space? Right?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And you would agree that this is the edge of what we can see, and you're saying hypothetically they could have cropped something, correct?
Sure. Let's see.
Okay. Now let's go look at the plan view. Now what that means is that when actually I need another plan view to be precise with you on this one. Okay, so it's this one. Now this plane is aligned because the tail is at the outer limit of what we can see, and I'm arguing that what we can see is the full 75-degree thing. And you're saying, okay, they could have vignetted it. Come back and look at the where to go? And look at it. This is the tail right here, right? Do you agree that's the tail?
Okay.
You guys
I'll
call
agree
this
with
the
that.
tail. You guys call this the tail.
Yeah.
Okay. So if this is the tail, it's right lined up with the edge. All right. Now, what you're saying is maybe they cropped it. That means they cropped it. We can't see this part. That means that the tail that we see moves the plane forward even more. It forces the plane to then be even closer, which means the plane would be even larger. And while, by the way, you guys are saying that this plane is artificially small, the closer you move it, the more normal it should look. If anything, it should look even larger. What we are seeing is nowhere close to 155 feet. If this was artificially cropped, then this is actually closer physically to the building in reality. Okay. And this is the reality of the situation, 155 feet to the wall. All right. So I don't want to, I mean, if you have more questions, we can talk about it, but I would like to move on to the notion.
Yeah, those are deep, good, falling over my head, but good.
All right, let's talk about light capture, right? So a camera, which is shutter speed. All right. So when you have a camera and you're snapping a picture, you're opening up your shutter, you're collecting light, then the shutter closes, picture's off, right? Okay. Back in the day, pinhole cameras, whatever, you'd have a long exposure time and you'd get blurring and streaking with moving objects, right? Because you have some light being collected here, and then as it's traveling really fast, you'd have it collected over here, okay? If a problem with this picture is shutter speed based on the speed of the aircraft or whatever, then if anything, it would only be helpful for it to make this plane or whatever it is would look even larger, because if the shutter speed were not fast enough, right, based on a 540-mile-an-hour moving object, then if anything, in the moment that the shutter's open, you would have a blur effect. This would appear even larger than it is. It's not large enough. It's not long enough. It's not big enough to be a 757. We know this because you guys, and forgive me saying you guys, I'm not speaking to just you, for the whole room, we've all been told that this is the tail right here, right? And that this is the nose. So we already have the full length of whatever this is. So there, we can't be told that there's blurring outside of the field of view, or they've cropped blurring and this thing is actually bigger, because nope, we're told that's the tail. So again, backed into a corner that they can't get out of. This is it. This is all we got. So if it's the case that the shutter speed was too slow, then this thing should look blurred or even larger. Now, let's talk about if the shutter speed's too fast, which I don't think is the case, but if it was,
It'd be sharper.
the moment that shutter is open, it collects all the visible light that's there. And then the shutter closes and then the light's gone. So the fact that the nose is here and the tail is here, that's what was available for the camera to interpret, is to collect as light at the time that it took this exposure. And that's it. It can't be bigger. If it were bigger, we would see bigger, especially if it's moving. So, I mean, that's really all I have to say with the shutter speed. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant. And then as far as the frame rate, it's moot to the point of the argument. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it happened to capture this thing here or whether it was here or whether, you know, got a couple. I would argue that the government really screwed up, because they could have never shown us anything here, and they could have used the frame rate of the camera, and they could have said, too bad, at 540 miles an hour, it was outside of the field of view on the first frame, and it hit the building on the second, and you missed it. But they didn't do that for whatever reason. And maybe they didn't do it because somebody really authentically leaked this footage and then they had to address it and deal with it. Or maybe they tried to create something that looked like a plane, so that this footage came out at the time that, you know, Charlie Sheen and really much of America was publicly talking about the fact that 9/11 was not what we were told. And it was trickling into conversations in Hollywood and major media, and you had thousands of people at rallies, not, you know, 10 or 50. I mean, this was a real problem. They had to do something. Now, I don't know if they leaked the footage because somebody else was inspired, because they're like, yeah, this isn't right, and let's put this out there, or what. But the footage came out, and this is what we got. And now they got to deal with it.
When did the footage come out, Xander? When did this specifically come out? Do you remember?
So I want to say, and forgive me because I'm not 100% Sandra, but I think that the more refined image and the one that had, I think it was this, I don't know which one came out. One of them came out first, and then the other one came out like 2005. The first one came out, I want to say 2002.
Okay.
It was early. It was like, I think it was maybe a leak, like 2002, maybe 2003. And
March
and that
2002, March
2002.
2002, 5 frames from the Pentagon surveillance camera became published by the Associated Press.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. And then they later, several years later, came out with this more like full version. Now, what was so curious about, you know, the other thing too, is I really struggle to find that people who
Wait.
are
If I can add, this was the only video footage captured the seconds of the attack that had been made available to the public until May 2006. Oh, okay. Sorry, something else.
Yeah. Okay, but that is about the time. It was around then. I mean, look up whenever Charlie Sheen was doing his whole thing, coming out as a truther or whatever. That's when
Right.
it was like a week or two later that they released this stuff, because he was saying publicly on national news and other places, like, look at the Pentagon footage. You know, that's not, you know, nothing hit the building, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
So
right.
it's accounted.
Okay.
Hey,
You were going to say something about that you were struggling with, but I do have 2 questions. So if you still remember what you wanted to say, go first.
No, I remember. I'll remember. Please ask.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, is it technically possible? You said, why didn't they just come out and say, well, you missed your shot because, you know, the plane wasn't in the frame at this moment and it was already passed at that moment. Is that a technical possibility that it could have, like, was that even possible with the camera?
My calculation, yes, my calculations are, I don't have it. I did some back of the.
It was
napkin.
recording at 1 frame. It was recording at 1 frame per second.
1 frame per second, and then you do the feet per second on 540 miles an hour is insane.
Right.
It was like, I forget, it was like 700 and something feet, and the distance in this field of view is only like 300 and something feet. And if they wanted us to believe it went all the way to the street, which it didn't, that was like 500 feet. So within 700 feet, literally the plane could have been coming at it. And yeah, I mean, it actually could have happened that way.
Okay, so I'm just wanting to make sure I understood that correctly. And my second question is,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, just to touch on that point. this could explain too why several FOIA requests from the past have failed, because they were asking for images of the impact of the plane, and they didn't. And if you have a situation where cameras are recording at a lower frame rate and it didn't actually capture the impact due to the fact that it wasn't capturing information fast enough, then what you're going to end up with is just the impact or the post impact. So that could be a reason why there weren't any other videos of impact per se, due to that reason.
I have to quick interrupt you now. I have to quick interrupt him because Sandra and I are in the process right now of filing a new amended FOIA request for my 100 videos. And he's phrased it in such a way that he's going to get anything within a ball of 1 mile radius from the ground level.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sandra. Go ahead.
Yep.
I mean, either way, this is just one camera. I mean, there could have been other cameras, you know, that could have captured something else. So, I mean, right now our focus is on this. And so my second question is, that picture that I'm looking at right now, is that what we're being told, that's the 757 that hit the Pentagon? That's what some people believe is the plane that hit the building?
Okay,
really?
hold up. This picture, okay, so this picture, they're telling us that this is the plane. They're saying that this, right, can you see my
Yes, that's my question.
Yeah, they're
The
saying
plane
that's
is
the
fitting.
nose, and they
Okay.
say this is the tail.
Show the nose again.
Right here?
Yep.
Yep, that's the nose, and that's the tail.
So that is supposed to be the 757 that hit the, I mean,
Officially.
Officially, yeah, that's supposed to be it. Well, I don't even know about officially because I haven't heard an official source argue that. Originally, the official
okay,
source
within this group.
Official sources, I think, originally said this was the nose, and then later there was some rebuttals by people in our community saying that that this was the full plane right here.
Well, if anything, that would be the nose of a Concorde, not of a 757.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I think
Very
this
pointy.
This could be a smoke thing. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And then
Okay,
Keep in mind too that it's also at an angle.
yeah, so I did.
you
So I
have
did.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's this measurement here. So this measurement is keeping in mind the angle of approach, and to show you how I derived that, what we did is, so you take the full length of an aircraft, okay, which this is 155 feet. That's how long. Look at the proportion difference. You see the proportion difference, right? This is a true 757 right here, 200 series. And this is what I've represented in all of the overlays. And this distance from here to here is what happens when you take 155 feet and you rotate it by the angle of approach. Now you can see just this part and this part. Obviously, there's going to be, when it's truly coming in, you know, the nose is going to look a little bit bigger and fatter. And this is
I thought that just would happen when it was cold out.
yeah. Right. So it's going to be distorted a little, but the dimensions don't change, Ed, right? So the nose to tail distance, this is the distance on angle approach. Again, guys, I try to debunk myself, man. None of this is comfortable, you know.
But wouldn't that support the idea of the 155 foot 757?
No, because look at how big it is. So when you overlay those dimensions, well, let's go back and I'll show you.
It looked like you overlaid the long one on there.
No, it was the short one.
That was the stubby one, huh?
It was the stubby one. Yeah, that's the stubby one. So the stubby one on the overlay, where did it go? Oh, I think it was at the end of the presentation. Anyways, it's the stubby one. We'll find it. This is with the deal. So this is the stubby one. Here's the long one, right? And this is a different picture. Because by the way, in this picture, this is supposed to be the tail. That's supposed to be the tail, and then the nose is supposed to be like right here.
What about frame 57 in your slideshow? Go up 2. So it looks like you were progressing that way. No, I guess not. My bad.
Yeah, 57. I don't know where it went. It's in here somewhere.
There it is.
There it is. Okay, there you go. Thanks. So yeah, that's the stubby one. You can see, because look how long the tail is in relevant distance to there. If I can show you the 2 again, but that's the stubby one. The stubby one, I mean, it goes almost halfway to the deal. And by the way, guys, I mean, that's,
is that scaled properly?
Yeah, and yeah, it is. And then look at this. Same thing. I mean, that's, the placement in the stubby one, it does go, well, that's actually,
Wait, I'm confused. If you can go back to the other
right here.
other slide, that showed the 90-degree and with the protractor over top of it.
Yes, sir. I feel comfortable calling you sir, by the way.
Oh, no.
Some of your cohort, man. Holy smokes, dude. Thank you for
I should probably just
positive
act
human
as liaison between those guys.
Well, thank you. They need an ambassador.
So this is the same plane, right? The top one and the bottom one. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So the angle that the cameras are looking at are the one from the bottom.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the distance from the tail to the nose of that aircraft on that second on the protracted version is what?
Well, the second one you're talking about over here?
Yes.
You're talking about this picture right here?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the width between the in other words, because it's shorter, obviously.
Here's how I did.
Right.
I did the tail, which is the back aspect of the tail, right? It was in this image, it was 283 pixels, and I measured that out and I showed you with the pixel measuring tool right here. So 283 pixels versus 412 pixels. And then so you can you can plug your ratio in, and it's roughly 70% reduction. And I'll show you how. And then the other thing is that this angle that I used, which is 47 or whatnot, was derived from the official flight path incident to the field of view of the camera.
How long is 757? Does anybody know?
155.
155 for the 200 series. They might have a longer version on the 300 series.
So we're not going to be looking at a 155-foot long object.
Correct. That's right.
We're looking at a shorter object.
We were looking at a 155 object, but we're not seeing all 155 feet of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So, okay.
We're looking for a 106-foot object.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This should be 106 feet, and it's not.
How big, and then what is this? What is it?
To give you the exact measurement, we've got to reduce the distortion, and whatnot. All I can tell you is it doesn't meet the limits, the outer bounds. I can say it's it's smaller. I don't know how much smaller. I can say it's substantially smaller. I can say it's
so could it be
the possibility of it being American Airlines 77? It cannot be.
So how do we know it's not 106 feet then if we don't know how big it is?
We know it's not 106 feet because we know that 106 feet should be
half the frame.
Picture again. Yeah, roughly half the frame. Was this the picture? Yeah. Was it this one? Where'd it go? It was, it's near 50.
And just to mention that Craig's had his hand up for a little while. So
oh, sorry. Yeah. This Ed, real fast, just to close that should be 106 feet right there.
Okay. And we're saying it should be where?
And we don't see that. We see this, which, I mean, if you want to do the math, that looks like it's maybe 70 feet, 60 feet. And again, though, that doesn't mean that the Sky Warrior, whatever it is 60 feet, because we're looking at something on a different approach. Possibly, however, we don't know that because we don't know. I don't know that the official flight path is accurate. I don't trust those light poles. I don't think something traveling at 540 miles an hour is going to do that to those light poles and not send them careening, hundreds of feet or whatnot away. So I don't know that flight path is accurate. For all we know, whatever is in this picture is coming at the building from a more Western approach. I mean, it could be, we don't know where it's actually flying. I mean, it could be coming in at this angle. It could be coming in over here. Like, we don't know. So coming up with the exact measurement is a little tough, but if we want to play devil's advocate and we want to align it on the official flight path, then it cannot be 77.
How do you scale it? How do you get it scaled? Like, did you put the,
I'm
sorry. Let me go to somebody else because I've been asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'll answer that question. Let's go to Craig. And then it's 155 feet using measuring tools on Google Earth. You can measure you can measure everything on Google Earth. That's how it's scaled. Craig, what's up?
Yeah, I had a couple of things I just wanted to get you to react to. One is, I mean, Wayne Costy's position that he's put forward is that because he says that he can determine by, the where a truck was that was moving in the frame, and in terms of the two camera views, that he alleges that there's a 4/30ths of a second difference between the two cameras. They're out of synchronization by that amount. And this he offers as an explanation for why, why a plane would appear would not be visible in one frame without the concrete, whatever you call that, and in the other frame, it would be there, sticking out from behind that, but not be there in the other frame.
Why don't you see it here, but you see it
right? And so his claim is that because there's a 4/30ths of a second difference, that it's possible that in one frame we see the plane, and in the other one the plane's already hit the building.
If he's correct about the 4/30th of a difference, then he's correct that whatever it is might not be in the other picture. That's correct.
Right, but what I want to know is what your research, what impact your research has on what he's offering this as support for the idea that, that this video is authentic, and that one of the main things that, one of the main objections to it raised by Massimo Mazzucco, should be tossed out. And I just wonder if you would just comment on, you're looking at a different aspect, but it's a different aspect. Your research, what impact it has on the possible validity of what Costi is saying.
Okay, so it doesn't really have anything to do with the findings of my study, because whatever this thing is, I'm simply arguing cannot be 77. It could be something smaller, and it may not be in one frame, and it may be in another based on 540 mile an hour trajectory. So if the speed is accurate, then that's correct. I have not, Costi et al. Made some assumptions regarding the truck speed, and then they derived their frame rate irregularity or disparity based on that. So he came up with his number based on some assumptions. I don't know if those assumptions can be proven. I don't know if we know how fast that truck was moving. It's all based off of that. So, and the other thing too is, for the talk of distortion in the image, if he's trying to derive the speed based on the travel distance, well, did he calculate what the distortion in the picture is? Because that would affect where it is in one moment to the other. So I'm inclined to think that, I just haven't looked at it, Craig. I don't know. I thought that Massimo, his interpretation was probably correct, that there was something fishy going on with the other image. And the reason that I thought that was because of the Boolean subtraction that they did. The Boolean subtraction was really interesting to me. I work in medical imaging, and I'm used to looking at patterns and shapes and images. And it was pretty clear to me that those same pixels were in fact repeating themselves in the other image in a manner that you might see with photoshopping of some sort. And the last thing I just want to say while we're on the topic of photoshopping or doctoring these pictures is, it is inconceivable to me that footage retrieved from a security camera system, especially from an official source, but really from any source, from your own security camera system or anything else, would overwrite the acquisition date and time with the retrieval date and time. That makes zero sense. I know of no systems anywhere in the world that do that. And the notion that our government's security cameras would do that and put out the wrong time and date and stamp during a federal record release is absurd. So yeah, they definitely doctored the cameras in my opinion. And I'd love to see somebody show me a system that's what you get when you pay for it, is you get the retrieval date and time overstamped on the thing. And I would also like whoever released that to tell the public and the world how that's acceptable. If they
there's a link in the chat of the interview with the gentlemen, or the people who actually worked on that camera system and retrieved that data on September 12th, and they explain all that and what happened there. And that link is in there.
Yep, I'd like to hear them explain how they feel it's acceptable to allow some retrieval date and time to be what they presented to the public.
Well, they said because when they said it was there was a glitch in the software. They were testing it. It was actually a test phase of the system, and they were there working on it, et cetera, et cetera. That's why they were recording it one frame a second. And then when the So when they're doing when they were being interviewed, they talked about that anomaly with respect to September 12th being the day they actually retrieved the data, and that's when they found that error, and they fixed that error since then.
Have you seen the way in which it overlies it? That's absurd. It's ridiculous. I would say that those individuals.
Well, if you're
I haven't
just
watched it, but they've
Sure,
participated in the mass, abetting the mass murder of
No,
100 of our
Isn't it
federal.
my turn at this point, Ed?
Yeah.
Is it still my time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yes, it is. So I'm not.
Well, all right, go for it.
Okay.
I thought you asked your question already. Sorry.
No, you had a
Well,
second
I mean,
point.
I asked one.
Yep.
Oh,
You had two.
okay.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Craig.
No, I just want to point out, and this is not a scientific point, it's just kind of a point that's sort of, it's kind of obvious. And that is the idea that we're trying to figure out whether this actually shows a 757 that's about to hit the Pentagon on the official flight path, just like the official story says. And yet there appear to be no other views of this same event happening. The fact that the only view that we have available to us is one that is so dubious and blurry and difficult to see. I mean, I think these should send up huge red flags, just because if a 757 had really hit the building on the official flight path, one would think that would be a very easy thing for the government then to show us, because there obviously are many cameras on the Pentagon. There obviously a real plane impact would have been captured by many cameras, not by one parking, not one at a parking booth. So unless we think they're trying to, just play games with us. I mean, isn't it obvious that a real 757 on the official flight path, that we would have seen something better than this, and that we wouldn't even be discussing this 20 years later?
It's
Yeah,
a great
if I can
point.
just back-
Won this point by now. wouldn't it?
It's a great point, but it's unfortunately it's nothing concrete for us.
No, but we have
my
to
question
go.
is to
Yeah. Sorry,
Xander.
Craig, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm raising this, I'm throwing that up to Xander. Anybody else wants to comment as well? Can.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, I made a similar point in that, we have seen the footage of the towers being hit 1,000 times over, and they milked it for all it was worth to create that psychological impact of terror in people's minds. And I think that if they had footage of the Pentagon being hit by a plane, I think they would have done exactly the same thing. They would have absolutely used those images to show that the stronghold of security of the US, where everybody congregates, that it was attacked, that would be something they would absolutely have used if they had it. So that's kind of a little bit going to your point. It's the fact that we don't have it says a lot.
Well, the fact that they're also, it's not just that they haven't offered it to us, they're telling us it doesn't exist. They're telling us, dozens of other cameras at the Pentagon, not a single one captured that a 757 flying towards, the head of the, U.S. military's headquarters,
Right.
the headquarters of the U.S. military. It just to me strains credulity beyond.
I think they're saying that it doesn't exist. They're just playing the games of not providing evidence to conclusively say that it doesn't exist. The same thing with the plane parts. They won't release anything. The video footage that we're trying to fight for in a FOIA request, they won't release anything. They just, you make a good point. It's a good thought, but
it's not our job to corroborate their side of the story. They're the ones that have to, we make the point with the evidence we have, and they have the opportunity to counter it with evidence that they might be able to provide. And if they haven't provided it, either they're being dishonest or they don't have it.
Yeah.
So it's hardly they could hardly come out of this looking honest and forthright by pulling out a video of a nice, clean, crisp video of a 757 coming into the Pentagon, 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
right.
So it's their job to use the evidence to prove their point. And I guess my point is they have not done that.
Right. I
Yeah.
gotta go to Ray. Ray's had his hand up for like 15 minutes, and then we'll come back to you, Ed. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. That's good.
Go ahead, Ray.
Hello.
You want to take down Craig's hand, Gene?
Mhm. You're up, Raymondo.
Okay, looking at the presentation of Xander, I'm looking at the images we have of the security camera, and there's something called barrel distortion going on. That's a fish eye, and I posted a picture in the chat, but you're on Xander is on the.
Let me hang on a second. Let me get there.
But it's the last one I posted. It explains it in lines where you see squares and how it's distorted in the image. There's a barrel distortion and pincushion distortion. That's a pinpoint in the middle where you focus on.
Yep.
But barrel distortion, if you look at that one, if you go outside to the left or to the right or to the top or bottom, the squares get smaller, but they're also a little bit edged in a way. And that means if the plane is on the edge of the picture, the object, what it was, we can leave that out of the question, but the object which was shot by the camera appears smaller.
Mhm.
And I posted another picture. It's just explaining it in real life. It's one above that one. No, that's not mine.
Oh,
That's
above
not
it.
mine. No,
Hang on, I'm getting
the
there.
second,
I'm trying.
the one before the last one. It's
Oh, okay, here it
the
comes.
second
Hang
one
on.
from under.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah. Here you see an example of a barrel distortion taking place in a picture, and you see also the black line from the camera angle, the
Vignette. I think they're
actual
calling it.
the size of the lens. Because
Notice that that's
you're
rough.
looking, the black part is actually the barrel of the lens. And the lens is on the front of that's capturing the light. But you see, if you look at the street, the more you go outside to the left or to the right, the cars get extremely very small, and the cars in front are really the normal size. And then you can just walk the street, and you see the cars getting smaller, but very
I feel like you're just repeating what Xander said. You got a question?
No, it's not what Sandra said, but Sandra said that's not taking place, and you cannot have this thing like barrel distortion. And I
You're
think
doing
that's
apples and oranges, though. This distortion is significantly more than what's in the other security camera footage. I mean, look, this is a straight sidewalk, and
yeah, but
this is like
take-
180 degrees.
I understand what you're saying, but take it back to the Pentagon, the security camera, where you see the whole building and you see the roof line,
Yeah.
making a bend. And
Right.
this bend in that means that it was an ultra wide lens, and which causes an ultra wide lens causes barrel distortion. That's
This image is an
how it
ultra-wide
works.
lens. The other one is not an ultra wide lens, and
If you take it back to the Pentagon.
I will.
What
I'll
I
show you.
said.
the screen
No.
again. I'll show you the image
I'm
again.
looking at a street now. I'm not seeing the Pentagon. So
Hang on, let
maybe
me.
Yep. I'll show you the image.
technical
again.
side of the story can be met. But look at the
Eh,
Pentagon. You
Trying.
see distortion.
Dang it.
Okay. Hey, see if you can pull up camera. It's this. Yeah, with the one with the cones. Look at the cones.
I'm trying to get my screen to come over here, and it won't freaking pull over here. Come on.
And again, Ray, we talked about this. Look at the cones. They're not distorted as you are.
Look,
implying.
what I'm saying is
You're
look
saying
at
that the plane is distorted.
No,
in the
no, no,
background, But
wait,
everything
wait,
in the foreground is not. That's impossible.
look at the roof line of the Pentagon building.
Yeah, we know there's.
It's curved.
You know
and
that.
Right.
it's curved, and because it's curved, it's curved because the lens gives this image of distortion of the building.
Yes, we know
It's
that.
the type of lens, and every wide lens, ultra wide lens, they give this barrel distortion. You get this curved roof line, and that's what Chandler tried to put in his video is flattening that out so that it becomes a normal picture again. And I think he did a good job in explaining that. And that's not something you can shove under the table, because what he's saying is because a wide angle lens was used, barrel distortion takes place. Because barrel distortion takes place, everything which is outside the center quickly becomes smaller. And he made it flat again so that you can see it in but it's not real life. It's kind of what we have is a wide angle lens on the security camera.
It's not a wide angle lens. For
No,
one. For two, yes, you can apply the pincushion effect, but that doesn't change the dimensions enough.
How many
to make it a 77.
millimeters is the lens? What is the millimeter
I
size?
told you already, and you were paying attention, that I didn't
No.
have that data in front of me, but it's available via the 9/11 data sets.
But what is it? What is the number?
He didn't have that information available to him, but it's very important to know right now.
That's the most important part. If we have to know the millimeter of the lens.
And by the way, hey,
And everything
forgive me if
below,
you guys
below,
aren't part of this camp, but those listening, Team Treason, when you go out to go ahead and try to, scramble the lens size, take note of what you see in the far field of view, okay? Because we're limited to 75 degrees. You're not going to fix this.
Yeah, but you also got to account. You got to account for the lens and the sensor size as well. And I don't know what those are exactly.
All right, so we know. So what are we saying? What are we saying needs to be looked at more? The millimeter of the lens.
I would love to know what the lens is. What's the lens and the sensor size, and what kind of sensor you're dealing with.
Hey, Gene, let me get ahead of this situation a little bit. I need to share the screen.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, because they're going to go chasing down this thing, but all right, share screen again. And I already talked about this, but let's rehash it. Because frankly, I don't think you should waste your time on this, is my opinion. I think
I
that
take it. Let's flush this one out.
Except that that this is what we're dealing with.
Yep.
When you, and I need the close-up view, when you look at the placement of these cameras right here, okay, right there and there, you're going to see the line of sight through the camera post, okay? It goes through the camera post, and when you come through the camera post, you're limited to right here. Here's your trees. Look at that. You're at least a full tree width over, okay? So you're going to go scrambling to try to say sensor size this and whatever, and you're ultimately going to be making stuff up. You're not going to be able to change the millimeter of the glass, and so then you're going to try to argue that the sensor size was whatever you're going to say. But when you
both lens and sensor size,
find the camera post with the location of the camera, you're going to see that you're already hemmed in. You're hemmed in by the dimensions that were given in the original images that were released.
There won't be any harm if they go track that down.
No, there won't.
No,
I'm just trying
no,
to. I just would wish that you wouldn't waste your time. Or
here's the point. Okay, if you're dealing with a longer lens, you're not going to have as much distortion. Okay, that's the point. So if you have, and also it's going to be dependent on sensor size. It's going to be dependent on the lens, and which is going to actually impact field of view.
Right, and we don't.
But because we got some distortion, it's important to understand what size lens we're dealing with.
Yeah, and you're right. We don't have that much distortion. In fact, look at this very popular on YouTube footage. This is like the engineering team that was contracted to try to put this to bed. Look what they do. So you can see right there, there's your plane. Now look at how they debunk the conspiracy theorists. When they go ahead and tell us what really happened, they're going to apply this drawing. Well, look at that. They're using the same thing. It's the same dimensions, whether it's got the field of view or not, the distortion or not, the dimensions don't change in their picture. As you come back right here, it's still too small. This is their drawing of it, right? This is still too small. Look, now I'm going to pause it right here. Look at that outer edge. You see that right there? Do you see how much? It's not even, it's roughly one camera post width, okay, over. That's the limit of the field of view. Are you guys able to see that? Forgive me. It's kind of awkward doing it this way, but you know, that's the width. That's the outer limits of it. And now we're going to come back and we're going to look at this. We're going to look at reality, okay, which is satellite imagery of our Pentagon on 9/11. And when you look at the size, the width of one of those camera posts, it's that big. Your width of the field of view is right here. That's it. You don't get to see anything past that. And here's I want to answer Craig's question to me earlier that Craig, we don't know what we don't know. Okay, so if there were other things going on in other images or cameras or whatever, we just don't know. But we do know that what we've been given, we can prove, okay, that this image cannot be American Airlines 77.
Yeah, that's I agree with you. That's the bottom line. I guess I was just throwing that at the people who have been arguing with your point or that point for years, sort of trying to figure out how they can, you know, convince us that this actually shows the real plane, and just the idea that you know, that this would be our only view of it, just is ridiculous to me. And I gather, I mean, you know, I'm not sure I totally caught the subtleties of this discussion that just took place, but in terms of the importance of it, but maybe you could just repeat for the layman, you know, who are listening like me, why what they're saying, if you're suggesting basically it doesn't matter in terms of determining whether the plane is too small. They're saying, well, if the type of lens being used, whatever, could you just clarify why that doesn't change anything? Like why that can't be the explanation, you know, that takes care of things from their point of view?
Forgive me for maybe not fully understanding your question.
Okay, I said that badly. Let me try one more time. The suggestion I gather is being made that we can't say for sure that the plane simply is the wrong size unless we know the lens that was being used, you know, and I gather you're saying that wouldn't make any difference. Could you just clarify?
No, I'm not saying it would make a difference. It is critical to the implications of this presentation and these findings and what is before us. If the field of view, I'm going to share the screen again. If the field of view is larger than 75 degrees, then that does change all of these measurements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is something that I had in mind at the outset of this, guys. I don't like to waste my time. And so one of the first things that I did was I looked at what we see in the picture. I looked at the trees. I tried to wrap my mind around which trees are these. Because I'm going to go up to one of the earlier slides. Basically, if the camera field of view is not 75 degrees, right, then it's going to be wider in that dimension and it's going to be wider in that dimension, okay? And you're going to start adding data, right, in terms of light collected, okay? You're going to start adding it. However, when we look at what we see in the images, we can see that it is truly limited to the 75. We see that. By the buildings in the background, we can, and I don't have them in this presentation, but I actually zoomed out on Google Earth. And so you see this structure down in here, right? I've looked at all of this. I've looked at these hotels. I've looked at the Ritz-Carlton, the location of it. I've looked at all of the stuff that's in the background. Again, it's all hemmed in. And it is the case that it's 75 degrees. And then further, and because the pictures are here, I've been able to show you guys. That's the other thing that we can show. We can actually prove it again by the cameras themselves. When you look at where they are here and here, okay, and you look at the width of that camera, you don't see any light collected past the width of the camera post, okay? So that means it cannot be greater than 75 degrees, because greater than 75 degrees would mean you're collecting a substantial amount of light past that camera post. And when you align it to the here, and by the way, I've been favorable in every instance where I'm going to make a mark or location. I'm always favorable to the official story. I try to move it into the realm of debunking myself, so I'm not wasting my time, okay, or yours. And so we are dealing with a 75-degree field of view camera, the best I can
But
tell.
if you know, but we know the type of sensor, we know the lens size, you can actually calculate mathematically what the field of view should
Yeah, it
be
wouldn't
vertically,
hurt, so-
diagonally, and horizontally.
I,
So we want to make sure those numbers match.
yeah,
So if this is 75 degrees field of view, then we want to make sure that the lens and the sensor size match that.
Right. And
I-
I get that. I understand what you're saying. That would be worth doing. You're going to have some latitude to play with stuff with sensor size, because you're going to be able to say, well, the sensor was really this or really that. And when you do that, if you go down that road, you're still going to have to deal with the implications of the actual light collected. And the actual light collected is a 75-degree field of view.
Well, what we have to deal with is the discrepancy.
Well, the
And
discrepancy.
figure out where the
if
discrepancy,
if
what's
there's a
wrong.
discrepancy made, it's going to be one that, frankly, Team Treason creates, because we can see what it is.
we
by
don't
looking
need,
at the light
we don't,
collected.
we don't need to call names, but. yeah.
No, not you
Well, I mean,
guys.
it's just math. It's
Whoever's
just-
going to
it's
go in
just
the
math.
background to try to defend this thing. I mean, this is the
Right.
same.
It's
group
it's just math. That's all it is. I'm just trying to point out.
yeah. Okay.
we
that's
can do the
fair.
calculations
That's
and
fair.
figure it
Yeah,
out.
let's try to get it. Let's do it. Yep, I agree. Let's do it.
It'll flush it out, and then we could lay that to bed. No one could ever come back to that again. So that would be awesome. I don't know who
Alright.
can, because the whole time you guys been talking, I'm trying to find out the lens size. Like, it's not mentioned anywhere.
It's in a New Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
There's, I think they talk about it in there.
In the PNAC.
Yep.
Okay.
And then let me see if I can find it in the. Let me see.
I hope did anybody have any other topics? Because it looks
Well-
like this one's going to be on this topic for the.
Well, Mark wanted to share something.
Yeah.
Ray had
So, yeah, I'd like to give him some time and space too.
Yep.
And
10-4,
Adam, I don't know if Adam wanted to bring up something specific, but there might be Adam as well.
correct.
So yeah, Xander,
Mark-
is that presentation, that whole PowerPoint? I'm guessing that it is, but available somewhere or?
Yeah, through Richard's site, his Pentagon conference.
Okay.
It is available. You can download it. You can go through it. You know, I've got a caveat slide at the back. It's like these are initial findings, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's here you go. Yeah, some of this stuff, if there's distortion, like the 12th division things, that can change a little bit, but you know, whether it's truly a 12th or not, but it doesn't change the implications of the fact that this aircraft right here, this is what 77 would look like if it were 77. Look how large it is, right? I mean, this is, so whether you're obscuring a 12th or a 10th or a 14th or whatnot, it really doesn't matter, because this is the size of the plane that would be behind it. And so when we're talking about what kind of plane is hiding behind this post, we have to understand how large the plane would actually look in this picture. And it's huge.
I have to say that I hadn't heard the term Team Treason before, and I like that.
I
Now,
mean,
does that mean
look, some people are going to
does that mean we're the traitors for disputing the
inflammatory.
official government story, or the government, or we are calling the people?
Okay, here's what I'm going to say.
Traitors.
Yeah,
Not
Mark,
even both.
here's what I want to say on that. For those, whoever they, now some of us in the truth community may simply be persuaded by effective argumentation from others that are putting out different perspectives. And if that's the case, no, you're not part of Team Treason. If you're somebody who is trying to obscure the fact that our employees of the DOD and service members were mass murdered in this building by somebody other than hijackers from a foreign power, then yeah, you're fucking Team Treason.
Right on.
All right.
What about a combination of the two?
Okay, it's right, devils. So you know somebody in the government fucked up really bad and you're running cover for them. Wrong side of history, man.
What about we're not running cover, but still both?
Well, and I would
I don't
say
see
that
how you
this,
could be both. I don't see another instance where you could be both.
this is
Oh,
something
there
that
is.
Greg said to me many
Unless you're
months
just doing a
ago, is
job,
that
unless
what
you're just blinders on and you're just like, this is my job, this is my role, this is what I do, these are my commands, whatever, and you're really doing your best to not think about the greater implications of it. I mean, do people like that exist? Sure.
I love you guys, and the fact that Ed asks these devil's advocate questions. I mean, you guys aren't going to let anybody go without anything being unchecked. And I love that. And I know we all disagree on what happened at the Pentagon, but ultimately, like Sandra said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing and adding my own thing here, we're all on this ship called the USS 9/11 Truth movement, and nobody's going to let anything go unchecked. We're going to call each other out. And, you know, Barbara needs to be on these calls because behind the smoke curtain's just not going to fly.
And David Chandler too.
And David Chandler too. Nobody's without getting called out on something. So I just really appreciate you all, like Adam said earlier. Ray, you had your hand up. Is it something pertinent to what we're talking about now, or going off on a tangent?
Yeah, I can go two ways. It's what I was thinking about. Changing the perception of what took place there is maybe the best way to go. And I posted two pictures on right at top, and if we're talking about analyzing pictures now, it's looking at the aftermath of what took place there at the Pentagon, and I posted it
Let me try.
right in front. It's in the beginning. It's 23:35 and 23:36
I'm trying
in the
here.
chat.
Stop participant sharing. Find the right screen. Share screen. That can't be right.
No. That's going with the other subject. It's about lens, the millimeter of the lens, the focal.
When did you
length.
send it?
This is the last. This is the last one I did. But this is just looking at millimeter sizes, and what 35, 34 is no distortion at all, and 55 is the longer the lens, it's straighter. And if you look at 80 millimeter lens, that's the top one, it gives a distortion, and everything below 35 millimeter is considered a wide angle lens. And then you have ultra wide, and you have fish eye, and you have a lot of strange lens types, but they all go in millimeters, they go down. And everything above 35 is considered a normal image without a lot of distortion. But that's going back to the other subject, and I was.
It also depends on the quality of the lens.
It really we have to know the lens type. Without that, it's not going anywhere. But I wanted to really focus on these two pictures. That
so we're changing subjects. We're off of the camera thing.
Yes.
But if we're Ray, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark. You're muted.
Yeah.
Hang on a second, Ray.
Okay.
Mark, you're muted.
I'm just saying we've been on this subject for an hour and 30 minutes, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
was just introduced to that I was going to present, and now we're going back to millimeters, and I thought we already addressed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We didn't.
but-
I didn't mean to click on that.
That's why I wanted to focus on these
I
two.
know, but Ray, I did want Mark to go first. If
Yeah,
that's okay. And
because he had already said he wanted to bring something up, and
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine with me.
Then we'll go to this.
If we can come back on it.
Yep.
right.
if we can come back to that. Yes.
Great.
All right, Mark, it's your floor now. Thank you, Xander, for all of that. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
guys, thanks very much. Appreciate the convo, and yep.
Yep.
Mark, let her rip.
Yes, thank you. That was awesome. Lorraine has tried to get in a couple times, and she's just not having any luck. I know that she's come in, but this is really me helping Lorraine present what her views are. I think that I think that I should just show this video that we've made that kind of introduces it. We are titling this Vindicating Lloyde England. I am certainly somebody who agrees with CIT's conclusions. There are just so many, there are so many corroborating witnesses that it's impossible to ignore. And what does that mean? It means the plane couldn't have hit the building, which means the plane had to have flown over. I don't want to talk about that, but how can we demonstrate that? And this is something that CIT seemed to miss. And watching these videos again, it's really hard to see how they missed it, but Lloyde does nothing. Lloyde tells them where he is over and over and over, and he continually asserts that he was not on that stone bridge. And CIT's conclusion is to accuse him of being a conspirator. And anybody who's watched Lloyde, I think you really just have a hard, I know people like Lloyde. I grew up down the street from Lloyde. I don't know him, but I know people like Lloyde, and he just comes across as a kind man who was telling the truth. And we kind of I put this together for Lorraine. And I think that I need to share my screen to do it.
Yep. How long is the video?
It's a 2-minute video.
Okay. When you do share, make sure you check the box in the bottom left. It says share your sound.
Gotcha. I'm glad you said that. And am I just going to share my desktop?
It'll ask you to pick which screen.
Okay.
I don't know how many monitors you have. I have 3.
All right, let me try to share again to make sure I've got my VLC player open.
Or you can specifically choose a program too. There we go.
Yeah, we can see it.
So hopefully this comes through.
Yep. Well, the audio is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not getting audio, Mark. Did you check that box to present down the bottom left? I don't think Mark can hear me now. Yeah, Mark, this isn't
Mark,
working.
we can't hear it.
Do you not have the sound?
No.
Oh, crap. I bet that when I tried to share it again, I didn't click share sound.
Yep, I think that's what happened.
Just try it again doing that.
I'm sorry.
Nope, it's
That's
good.
okay.
Stop your share and reshare with that box checked. Try it again.
The box is checked and
I think you need to stop the share and restart it.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Now reshare and make sure you check it.
share sound is checked.
Better.
No, my car was not there.
I can pull it up, I'll show you.
I don't care what you do. My car was at the Pentagon. My car was not across this bridge.
It was on this.
It's clipping a little bit. If you could turn the volume down here. There you go.
The cemetery is over here.
The cemetery is, yeah, it's over here.
That's where I was.
All the poles that were down.
The car is back here. I was driving it. Regardless of what they say, I was there. I know.
Well, and that's
Can you guys hear it now?
Yep, we're good now.
Okay.
No, I wasn't on the bridge.
Well, it's an overpass.
No, I wasn't on the overpass. I was on flat ground.
so where are you trying to say
We used
the
to
car
race
was
on-
here?
The car was back here.
Okay.
just have to, I'll put this online, but I'll have to show this guy here is Dr. Goff. He was a Pentagon medical team, and you could see him. I'll take it back a little bit there.
Looks like
You
Charlie
can see him
Manson.
making a swooping motion with his arm.
Swoop down here, and I tried to follow it, and I saw it lift up a little bit to get.
These were the light poles. This is where the taxi cab was, right here, not over here. Nothing happened over here, period.
Well, you know what? They could have moved the car.
You know what? They could have moved the car.
Okay.
So I think a couple things. I know that most of that is not new information for anybody, if not all of it, except for there are a lot more witnesses that Lorraine has found and confirmed their locations, and that's something we'll be working on presenting in the future. The thing we put there at the end is something that Shirley said in the video. She said maybe that they moved the cab. And that is our contention, that the cab was exactly where Lloyd said it was, and they moved it. I also think in there that there has been, by some people, a focus on, if you can discredit Sergeant Lagasse, that you discredit everybody. And he's called the star witness. Sergeant Lagasse is just one of the witnesses. And there are plenty more who corroborate it. I would say I could quote one more thing that came from the Pentagon video, the Pentagon plane puzzle, if I can find this quickly enough, just about the corroboration of witnesses and what that means to an investigation. And it is,
Mark, can I ask
Yes.
why? What would have been the purpose or the intent of moving the cab? What would have been gained by that?
so these kind of questions are always hard. It's, I mean, if not impossible to answer. You cannot, it's hard to say why any of this was done or how any of it was done without
But what would have been
being able
gained?
to look at all the evidence. What would be to gain is to disguise the direction that the plane came from. If they can show that the cab was hit by the poles that were knocked
Oh,
over, then
okay,
that
okay.
means that the plane couldn't have come on the north path.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry.
But there is, I mean, in I can't tell, is that picture being shared right now?
Yeah.
That's me sharing it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so this is, I mean, that isn't even 56 witnesses. And actually, when I showed that video to Lorraine today, she said there are way more than 56 witnesses.
So what did they
There
say?
are-
Are we saying Lloyde England was on the bridge or wasn't on the bridge? Because
Are we going by?
When the pole went into his window, he was not on the bridge. And this is something that Lloyd repeats over and over and over, is that he was not on the bridge. And he in that video, you can see, and you can see it in the CIT videos, he points to what he refers to as H Road, being much further north. Yes, up in that direction.
Yeah.
I have my hand up. I don't know if
I'm sorry. Didn't see you,
go by
Craig.
that.
Go ahead.
I hope I get some of the leeway that Ed got with Xander at the early part of our conference, because I have more than one thing to raise with this. I find this I find Lorraine's position highly problematic, and frankly, one of the first things that got me suspicious about the whole Pentagon thing when I first came into the movement in 2010 was all the people that are supporting the official impact, or the official path and all that, that they seem to have this bizarre take on Lloyde England that suggested that, well, you know, how could CIT be so mean to this nice old man? So when I hear stuff about, you know, he's such a nice old man, I just think, well, that's not evidence, and that's not even of any value, frankly. You know, I think we can see any number of ways that Lloyd has been untruthful. He's made statements that are just simply impossible. And one thing I would point to, first of all, how could he be truthful about being, you know, hundreds of feet to the north if he ended up himself on the overpass with his cab in photographs? Does, you know, did they have a double of him, or did they, you know, did they hypnotize him and then move him without him realizing he was being moved? I mean, these are huge problems. And there's one thing I would point to in terms of the CIT video that you showed the clip from. In fact, there's an audio clip that is included in one of those presentations where Lloyd is not on camera, and I guess not even aware that he's still being recorded. And he says very specifically that the photographer that took all those pictures was up on the bridge. So he absolutely contradicts himself on camera and off. On camera, it's like, no, I wasn't on the bridge. Off camera, it's like, yeah, the guy that took the pictures was on the bridge. Well, the guy that took the pictures was right close to him. So, you know, that's just the beginning of the problems. This idea that we have to believe Lloyde England, this, you know, and yet at the same time, the North Path is correct, just seems like, I mean, not just problematic, but you know, suspicious.
Well, Lloyd, just in that video, Lloyd is not the only one who says he was up in that place on the bridge. Sergeant Lagasse points to him being there at the bridge, and Father so-and-so, I forget where he was, said that Lloyd was right next to him, and Father McGraw was at up by the heliport and said that Lloyd was only a few feet away from him. So that's two other people who, that's two other people that corroborate that story. And also, Craig, what you're asking me to do is what we have both complained about other people asking us to explain. How did Lloyd get from there? Did they drug him? I don't know if they did all that. What we do is have evidence of a trailer being there. We have picture evidence of now these are things that, you know, not everybody is going to believe, but there is evidence of what we are hypothesizing that has happened, is that his cab was moved after the event.
Yeah, but the problem with it, it's not whether his cab was moved or not that is the problem. Yeah, that could have happened because I mean, I think it's clear that the damage to his windshield was caused by something other than a pole being hit by a 757. So there was obviously staging that went on here. So whether they moved his cab from one location to another, I mean, you know, yeah, that could have happened. But to put that together with Lloyd telling the truth across the board, to me, that makes no sense. And we've got so many indications that Lloyd was not truthful. Lloyd talks about the pole, you know, going through his passenger side and impaling itself in the back seat. And then you look at the back seat and there's this tiny little hole. It's about 3 inches across. I mean, this is absurd. The damage to the cab is absolutely impossible. It's impossible to explain with the penetration of a light pole. It's impossible.
That's a matter of opinion.
What Lloyd is saying, and the fact that he contradicted himself off camera and on, should be a major red flag. And to kind of brush that aside is a big problem. So I'm not arguing about whether the cab was moved or not. I'm arguing about the fact that he was indeed on the overpass. His cab was on the overpass. That's where he's pointing to the pole on the road. So you're telling me that his cab was damaged in some way hundreds of feet away.
This is a great scene that they're showing. This is when Lloyd is first finally coming to terms that he actually was on the bridge.
Craig was still speaking.
The first time that they're showing it to him, and either Lloyd is a really damn good actor, or he is just confused as hell. He actually right before this, it's almost like it's a scene from a movie of somebody who's just his mind is being blown. He sits down so carefully because he's just coming to terms that he actually was on the bridge.
Thank
he
you, Mark,
doesn't
but I want to be
understand it.
respectful to Craig to give him his time to speak. Please, can we listen, give him his time here? Go ahead, Craig. I'm
I'll
sorry.
let Craig talk for a while.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, the idea that he was confused. I mean, this is the same thing that David Chandler says. You know, he was telling the truth, but yeah, he maybe got some stuff wrong. Well, he points to the pole on the road and says, "That's the pole," meaning that's the pole that I pulled out of my cab with this guy that stopped in the white van, the silent stranger that stopped in a white van, and we pulled this thing out. So, is he truthfully saying that we did that down hundreds of feet to the north near the Pentagon, and then somehow the whole scene was recreated, including the light pole, and he didn't realize that it had been recreated, and he was still saying, "Yeah, that's the pole right where I left it." He didn't say right where I left it, but I mean, this is just strange credulity.
I think that that's exactly what he's saying. He does not know how everything is up on the bridge.
But
Yeah.
but how is that? Okay, how do you deduce from that he's telling the truth? That rather than think that he's either that he's got something seriously wrong or that he's doing it on purpose, how do you deduce that it's actually true what he's saying? How is it possible to deduce?
Well, I've already said that there's two other people who corroborate him saying where he was.
But I'm not arguing where he was. I'm not.
Okay,
saying
that's the whole point of this, though. I'm not
no,
whether or not.
it's not. The point
This is just.
The point is not that he was at some point down closer to the Arlington Cemetery. The point is that you and Lorraine are arguing that he is being truthful and that somehow CIT is doing the wrong thing in painting him as being untruthful.
Okay, I would differ. I would not say that I'm arguing that Lloyd is being truthful. I would argue that
Sorry, but I'm still talking. I'm not finished my point, please.
You've been talking for a while, Craig, and you keep saying all these things, and you have to give me a chance to rebut some of them.
But when I finish a sentence would be an ideal time, Mark, I think, not in the middle of a sentence. Okay. It's not where he was at any one point. The point is you're alleging that this whole scene took place where I mean, there's no light pole that could have been knocked over on the north path.
That's correct.
Yeah. So the whole scene, whatever happened, if it's true that something happened near the cemetery, then it's staged. Then how can he be telling the truth about the whole scene on the overpass, which is hundreds of feet away? How can he be telling the truth? How can you argue that CIT is on the wrong track when they say that he's being untruthful? And how do you explain the fact that he contradicted himself on camera and off?
So again, Lloyd is not the only person who said that the event happened where he said it was.
On camera.
Legacy just did it in the video that I showed.
Again, I don't think this is even relevant. It's how did he get to
Legacy points to where he said the cab was over here, not over here. Nothing happened over here.
Okay.
And Father McGraw said that he saw it happen a few feet away from him.
Okay, so how
Lloyd
did
is not the only one saying that that this happened at H Road, for lack of a better term, right now.
That's a good point. If you got 3 corroborating eyewitnesses saying same thing, that carries some weight.
No, but Gene, I'm trying to make this understood that it doesn't matter whether you've got 20 witnesses that say that he was down at the other location. What matters is we've got photographs of him hundreds of feet away from there with the light pole lying on the road, and him describing the photographs as having been taken on the bridge. And at the same time, we're being told that he was telling the truth and that somehow this whole scene got moved hundreds of feet without Lloyd being aware of it. And so therefore, CIT is on the wrong track.
That is strange that he can't explain that. And thank you, Adam, for joining. I don't know if you can hop in on this.
So you have to give me a little poetic license for putting Lloyd was telling the truth the whole time. I'm trying to make something that grabs people's attention.
Well,
I believe Lloyd, and if there was anything that he was unequivocal about in every single video that every interview he ever gave, is that he was not on the bridge.
No, see, you're
He points to pictures, but when he put Craig, now you're interrupting me. When he points to those pictures, he says, I wasn't on the bridge. I wasn't on the bridge. And when they say that's the stone bridge right there, he says, yeah, but I wasn't there. He never actually agrees that it happened there on the bridge.
I just explained that, Mark. He said, and we had the audio of him saying this, although not on camera, but we have the audio where he says the photographer was on the bridge. Now, clearly, if where he's talking about, if the photographer's on the bridge, then he'd be looking hundreds of feet up the road at Lloyd's cab, not standing a few feet away from it. So to say that he didn't say that, it's wrong.
I didn't say that he didn't say that. I'm saying that he has never agreed with, when they showed him pictures of where he was and where all this happened, he never said that he was there. Yes, he did say that the photographer took pictures on the bridge. Right now, I can't explain why that is. That is the one anomaly with everything else that he says.
It's not an anomaly. It's a contradiction. That's not an anomaly. He's clearly stating on camera something that he absolutely contradicts off camera.
Okay, so
yeah.
Is that
So
not
what's the contradiction?
So let's concede that Lloyd wasn't telling the truth. We now have two other people who said that's where it happened.
And how does that change what does that do to the story? How does that change the story?
This all reinforces the North Path story.
How?
And how does that change it? It adds to the cover up. It shows that why did the government move, why did the perpetrators move the cab?
You're saying that the cab was actually hit by a light pole, hit by the plane.
Not saying it was hit by a light pole.
So
that was hit by the plane.
Why does it support the North Path?
Because it refutes the South Path, because that shows that Lloyd's car was not hit up on the bridge.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't show anything about where or whether his car was hit.
I'm a layman on this, and from what I gathered from what all you guys just said, was if Lloyd says his car was further up and and that's where he thought it was, that supports the North Path. Up on the bridge supports the South Path, the official path.
Right.
Correct?
Right, and if it didn't happen on the bridge, then that takes away at least one piece of evidence that supports the official story.
No, it doesn't, because his cab is sitting right on the overpass.
And I'm telling you that our hypothesis is that the cab was moved after it happened, that the cab is on the overpass.
And Lloyd was moved along with the cab without his knowledge.
Yeah, that's the point of contention.
Yeah.
That's where we're not going to agree here.
Yes, that is the implication, Craig. I don't know how that could happen, but weirder things have happened. There are a lot of unexplained things in this story.
That's a good.
Well, look, we're supposed to be dealing in evidence. Your video, Lorraine's video, made the point that we got to follow the evidence wherever it goes. Well, when the evidence shows that it's impossible that this whole thing happened hundreds of feet away, and
that evidence does not show that it was impossible that it happened hundreds of feet away.
So what even could be the possible explanations for Lloyd not being aware and contradict himself on camera and off, but not being aware that the whole scene had been moved up to the overpass?
And then the first thing that comes to my mind is MK Ultra, but I don't know.
Let me give Adam a chance. He just came in. He hasn't spoke yet. Adam, thank you for being here. And then I'm going to go to Xander. I saw you had your hand up, but Adam's just joining in. Go ahead, Adam.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, the Lloyde England story is very clear to me. I don't see how it's possible for him to just forget a major detail like that, like his cab was somehow moved without his knowledge. And during his testimony, he's very clear that this is the pole, this is what hit my cab, this is what me and the silent stranger took out of my cab, and you can see the scratch marks for the pole on the ground. It's very clear that the staging of the damage to his cab took place on the bridge. So
both you and Craig are, if I can just respond to something here, both you and Craig are using what's called an argument from incredulity. and this is something that David Chandler does also, just because you find it impossible, that's not evidence of anything except your own disbelief.
No, the point that you're making has no evidence behind it.
What are you talking about? This is the fifth time that we've said that that Father McGraw and Sergeant Lagasse both said that it happened where Lloyd said it happened.
Okay, so that's two people that, okay.
So you believe Lloyd about everything when he says it supports what you
Father
believe, but you
McGraw,
don't
did
believe
you
Lloyd
say
when
I don't
he
believe much
says
of what
other
Lloyd
things.
says at all, to be honest with you. I think Lloyd has got no credibility as a witness at all.
Yeah.
Adam, you were saying something about Father McGraw?
Yeah, his testimony, if I recall, is highly, highly suspect.
Okay. Xander, put your hand up. Oh, you're muted, brother. You're muted.
Unmute. Okay. Yeah. No, I've never heard this before. I find it really interesting. So I'm just thinking of scenarios, hypothetically, maybe something did impact his vehicle at this other location. He could have been pulled from the vehicle or helped to remove it. And then, I don't know, interviewed, distracted by whatever else was going on. And then at some point removed from the scene, then they moved his cab, positioned things where they wanted, drugged the deal. We see the scraping on the sidewalk, right? Like they drugged the other light pole because it needed it to align more in that south of Sitco approach path. I'm picturing scenarios where maybe he's telling the truth and is simultaneously confused about what happened. I'm willing to give him the, at least consider that. This is really interesting. I've never heard I never noticed Lagasse talk about that.
Yeah, I want to hear about
it's
that.
It's a good point. We're willing to, call him an expert witness on the other stuff. Like, we should consider this.
Well, okay. Let's not forget one key point here is that England says off camera that the photographer was on the bridge. So he contradicts himself. So to say, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, he's either, he's not being truthful in one instance, or he's not being truthful in the other instance. I see no scenario where he could be truthful in both.
Yeah, not being truthful and or not being accurate, right? Like he may, like you said, just be not a good witness, right? I mean, he might just legit be confused about stuff.
I said I didn't believe him as a witness, yeah.
Right.
But he clearly contradicts himself. Is this not an indication of that there's something seriously problematic with this person's version? If they're prepared to go on camera and say, no, I wasn't anywhere near the bridge, and then when the camera stops rolling, he says, yeah, we were on the bridge, or the photographer was taking the pictures from the bridge. I don't see any scenario where we give him the benefit of the doubt there.
But Craig, what does it mean when he says the photographer was on the bridge? Maybe he's just making a statement of fact, something that he heard. Maybe he's not describing his own experience of that. Maybe he's not describing what he saw. Maybe he's just making a statement or repeating something, referring to a picture. I don't know. Like, he's not saying.
Sandra, that doesn't really make any sense, because the photographs are clearly taken from the bridge, and that's where Lloyd's cab is, and that's where Lloyd is. So how, if he was where he claimed he was, how would he even know where the photographer was? He's clearly saying something that's blatantly
look down the road and see him.
Oh, come on, hundreds of feet away.
Why not? It's only it's not that far away.
Craig, I'm not disputing any of what you're saying. He said that about the photographer, and I said earlier, so let's concede that Lloyd doesn't know what he's talking about. We have two other people who place him where he said he was. Well, even if we take out the Father McGraw, we still have Sergeant Lagasse who says so.
Well, I want to see that.
I
really want to see that part. I hadn't heard that before.
If we're going to get into speculating, we can go anywhere. I mean, we can claim anything. So why don't we go with what Lloyd actually said, what the photographs actually show, and go with that as our best evidence.
But Adam, he said that was the pole, but he repeatedly says that it didn't happen on the bridge.
That's after he realized the implications of his earlier testimony, which were profound.
Now you're speculating.
No, that was the
you don't know that
interview.
Lloyd did not. You have no idea that Lloyd. Any reasons why Lloyd might have changed his testimony?
Wait a second. I am not speculating. That is the second interview where he said that. And that is after, well after, he was interviewed for the first time, and the implications of his testimony and all the North Path witnesses, implications of their testimony was revealed, and they all knew that they made a big mistake. So that's when he gave that testimony.
But you just said that implying that he only said this one time. He said this from go. Where he says that he was on flat ground in the video that I showed is from the very first CIT video that they put out.
I think you might want to relook at that. You might want to really check that.
It's the homework for the next month. We'll reapproach this one.
Hey,
so
Adam, instead of telling me to go look at it, why don't you show me where any place where he has ever said that he was on the bridge when it happened?
I'm trying
to look at the first time the interview.
Audio in the CIT video.
Trying to find it. It's called The Eye of the Storm, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
A lot of this idea that he was hit by the piece of the second pole at further to the north comes from Ruby Gray, I believe is the name of the person that supports this
she
idea.
Does not make that claim. She has never said that a light pole hit Lloyd's car. She doesn't think that.
Well, the idea that he was further north does come from her, and I've looked at her detailed information really, really in depth. I did a lot of study on it because I wanted to see if she was right. And I did a deep dive into it and looked at all the videos where she claimed that there was support for this hypothesis, and there was just nothing there. So you really look at the pictures and the videos that she refers to and do all the in-depth work, and it's a lot of work, believe me. You got to spend a lot of time to debunk stuff like that. And there's really nothing that supports that in her whole presentation.
But you're not telling the truth, because we just have conceded that two people support what she says on camera. One of them, Sergeant Legacy, who everybody agrees is one of the best witnesses for CIT. And you say that there's nothing that supports her, which is just a blatant falsehood.
Oh, I see.
But you also said, Mark, that the fact that he was actually much to the north supports the North Path. And if you're saying that you and Lorraine don't believe that an actual pole hit his cab, then how does that support the North Path?
Okay, so if there are 10 pieces of evidence that support the South Path, and you eliminate one of those pieces of evidence, you have 9 pieces left, so you have less evidence for the South Path.
Well, okay. I'm not sure that's how it works. That's how proof works. The South Path can be disproven.
You don't agree with that?
I don't believe. I think you can still prove something with one fewer piece of evidence.
I didn't, and I said nothing of the sort. All I said was you have less evidence. So
well,
I don't know how that implication isn't clear. That if you have less evidence, the case is.
It depends on the strength of the evidence.
Considering that Lloyde England's taxi cab is one of the cornerstones of the government's exhibit, taking that out certainly puts a dent in it.
No, actually, what you and Lorraine are doing is actually muddies the waters to the point that I think a lot of people will just tune out of the Lloyde England thing.
And really, I hear this causing division and muddying the waters. It's not my job or anybody's job to decide what other people take from other people's evidence. If what we present is muddying the waters, then somebody needs to get in there and clear the waters up.
Well, I don't think the waters are muddy at all. I think Lloyd was on the bridge. I believe he's a liar. I believe he faked his cab getting hit by the pole, and that makes his whole testimony an extreme liability for the government. And CIT uncovered that, and therefore Lloyde England's false testimony becomes a very strong piece of evidence that the government is lying.
Exactly.
And that's why they want to get rid of it.
I think it was Colonel Mustard with the in the library with the candlestick.
This is what Craig, I think, was referring to about the conversation after the fact. Let's see if I got this right.
But I'm involved in this. I mean, that's it. I mean, I was there. There's no only thing convinced me. You know, it's only no one has come up. Only person that's come up with anything similar to me is the house that we just left.
And those pictures. Now, are those pictures published anywhere?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, we gotta see those pictures. We got it. And he was there on Route 27 that day. Is that right?
Yeah.
He was driving.
No, he was. I don't know why he was there.
But he's your neighbor anyway. Did you know him before then?
No.
You didn't know him before. Okay.
I don't know if that was it or not, but
No, it's not. The one, it's a, what's on screen at the time is a picture of the cab in Lloyd's driveway, if that's at all helpful. Where you see him, they show the words on the screen where he says, no, he was up on the bridge.
Yeah, they go back. It's sometime. Lloyd keeps saying that he wants to go back to the bridge, but it's nighttime. And Craig keeps saying it doesn't matter if we go back to the bridge because the pictures are here. And they stop by the neighbor's house and pick up the pictures, and the neighbor gives them, I don't know. It's you're not going to get any argument from me that there's strange things that go on in the story. But Lloyd, I find Lloyd believable when he continually and repeatedly says that he was not on the bridge. Yes, he does say that was the pole, and he also says he wasn't on the bridge.
And he says that the pictures that were taken of him standing on the bridge were taken by a photographer who was on the bridge. So that's a big problem for the point you're making.
It depends on the context of when you're speaking or what you're speaking about. I wasn't on the bridge when X. I was on the bridge when X. What's the context?
He's not saying whether he was. He's saying the photographer that took these pictures, well, the picture that was just on screen a second ago, that photographer was on the bridge. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
So
there's
clearly that means he had to be there because that's where the pictures were taken.
Right, but what was he? Is he saying he's not on the bridge relative to the photographs being taken? Is that the context?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
And context is incredibly important. Is he saying he's not on the bridge as it relates to the photographs that's being taken?
Yes, he's pointing to the photograph and saying, I wasn't there. Like he actually says that photograph, I was not there.
He wasn't there when the photographs were taken, or just wasn't there?
Period.
What's he referring to? What's he answering to in that question?
Yeah,
in that response?
He's being shown a photograph. Well, maybe you can see it in this clip, but he's being shown a photograph of him and his cab and the pole on the bridge, and he's saying, I wasn't there.
Yeah,
I wasn't there.
He's also, but we have to be a little bit more clear in saying, yes, he's saying he wasn't there, which doesn't jive with him saying that the photographer took picture on the bridge, but he is also saying that it did not happen on the bridge.
Right. Right.
Does he say that? Have you got a specific quote where he says it did not happen on the bridge?
Well, but you can look at the inverse. What's the inverse of that?
Well,
what's the context?
What do you mean? What I'm not. What's your point?
Craig, I can get. I mean, there's several of him saying where it did not happen on the bridge. Okay, I can't give it to you off the top of my head right now. But I've been here for a very long time, and I'm late for. I don't know if any of you guys in America are part of Freedom Cell, but I met a lot of really like-minded people from Freedom Cell. Look it up, and I'm going to a party with all those, meeting up with some like-minded people. And I appreciate the audience here, and Craig, you and I are just right on the same side, just different on some small details.
Here's where he says
that's
There's important details that I think
that's an extremely important detail. I don't think it's right to characterize it as a small, insignificant detail.
Here's where Lloyd says, quote, and where the pole came in, there was no bridge.
Right. That's fine. I know he says that many times. Yeah. But then he contradicts himself.
So, and I'll just say one last time, he does contradict himself, and we've got two people that I just can say tonight that corroborate that that's where it happened.
But okay, but again, that doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem of him not only contradicting himself, but the fact that he doesn't give any clue as to how the.
Okay, so ignore Lloyd.
So he's either lying or he's confused. That's our only two options here.
Well, yeah, and confused is a 1 in a million shot as far as
I know.
Or we
I hear
completely
ya.
or we completely misunderstand everything.
Confused. Yeah.
Or we're
I don't
confused.
see how he can be
Or
confused.
we're confused.
No, there's really no confusion about it. Right here. in
Obviously there
picture you
is.
see on the screen, Craig is pointing out to him the contradiction in what he's saying, and he's caught, and he's acting like a person that's been caught in a lie.
That
And
could
that's
be.
why he's behaving that way. It's very simple. His demeanor tells you everything.
I agree, but you're innocent until proven guilty. Unless he's under a lie detector test, we can't know that for a fact.
Adam, you're using his demeanor as proof for why he's lying there, but I am not allowed to use his demeanor to tell you exactly why he's so completely telling the truth.
You're allowed to use whatever you want.
So
the fact is,
no, but okay, then let me ask a better question. Then why should we use demeanor?
We shouldn't.
Well, that's what detectives use all the time to solve cases and crimes.
So my demeanor trumps your demeanor, and I've been saying for the last half hour, throw Lloyd out of it if you want to.
I'm sure the government and anybody else that hates this evidence would love to have Lloyd thrown out. But
so
Lloyd
the goal of what we're doing, because I got to go, is to show that the cab was not hit by something on the bridge. And if nobody thinks that, I think that would be a pretty monumental piece of evidence. And so, like I said, I appreciate everybody's time and
good conversations. I would kind of want to wrap this up in 15 minutes. I know you saying you got to go. Before you go, I want to let everybody know we'll do this next month. Adam, I'm not sure if the time differential got you confused, but we started this 2 hours ago. It was 5 p.m. Eastern Standard.
I didn't know until today what time it took place.
Oh, good. So
that's why I'm late.
5 p.m. Eastern Standard. And then next month date is, what's 1 month from today?
It'll be June the 18th.
June the 18th.
I'd like to make a correction before I sign off. If you all so
I'd like to go around the horn too with everybody real quick.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll just jump in. So I've been kind of perusing 9/11 data sets. I'm not finding the camera millimeter in there, so I may be incorrect on that. I will say that both Massimo as well as Chandler and Costi all used 75-degree field of view in all of their prior work. What I did think was the millimeters was actually just the capture information, the NTSC stuff. So so I was incorrect on that. So yeah, if we want to track down the millimeters on the camera, let's go do it. But caveat, I've already shown, at least to myself, and hopefully you guys understood, that what we saw in the image was indeed 75 degrees, and we can prove that by camera post day. So that's all.
Thank you. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to talk about as like a new topic? Oh, I think Ray did. I guess we got one other small topic. If you want to change it to your, we're all good with, now we've talked about barrel or Xander and his field of view. We talked a little bit about Lloyde England, and everybody good with those two topics. We'll roll on to something for you, Ray. I kind of want to wrap this up in the next 11 minutes though, so if possible.
Okay. I wanted to make a small comment on the last presentation and the discussion about it. I posted a screenshot I made. It's from the Lloyde England and his cab in front of the Pentagon somewhere. And it's really, can you see it? It's the last one I posted.
Here. Give me 1 second. There it is. Nice clean picture.
Yeah. Okay. This is a photo of Lloyde England and his cab on a position, and it's clearly that there are lamp posts there, and you can clearly see the Pentagon in behind. So the difference in placing him is on the bridge or off the bridge. But if he's 1 meter off the bridge, he's off the bridge. So where do you pinpoint where Lloyde England is at the moment this picture is taken? And I think that's the only clear thing that we have are the pictures of that day. And that brings me to what I actually wanted to talk about this evening, are the 2 photos I posted in the beginning, because it's about getting a picture of what happened at the Pentagon.
I'm trying.
And I think that the most up, yeah, this one and the other one. These are both photos. We see the same part of the plane from 2 angles, from one side and from the other side. And we can also see the what is around this one plane part, which is most clearly the biggest part.
In the background, we can see where Lloyde England said he got hit. No, just kidding.
No.
Too early.
Leave the, he was not there.
I know.
He was really not there. He was on the other side. He was more to the south. He was really more to the south. But that you see a lot of debris also on the lawn, and the street is clearly blocked by police cars in the distance. You get a clear picture of what happened that day. And there's not a lot of people standing here, so that's and if we take the other picture, it's from the opposite side. The photographer is taking the picture from the other side, and then we see that plane part more in the foreground, and the background is the Pentagon still burning, and the roof line is still intact. So it was really short after what happened there. But if we look again on the lawn, we see a lot of plane debris, and that's what is my focus.
Wait a second, though. How do we know that's all plane debris?
If people claim,
we'll get to that. Adam, hang on.
If people claim there was no plane, how do you get plane debris in such an amount over the lawn, and really in small pieces? It's really small. It's like it was confetti. It's so small that this was a plane, and that's unimaginable for a lot of people, because how do you get a plane into such small pieces? And I think that's the only question we have to ask is how did they fragment the plane to the point that what we see as only fragments that clearly do not is not comprehensible for us as a plane crash. So something else happened there.
But yes, is it possible that the plane parts were placed inside the building and that they were exploded out?
I'm only taking 2 pictures. I'm only taking 2 pictures that we focus on what we see.
Right.
And we see,
so
we clearly see plane parts. And
yes.
you're saying,
you're making an assumption based on what we're looking at here, that all the debris in the background is from a plane, but we don't know that. Those could be bits and pieces of building right there. We don't know what that is in the background.
And even if it's a
but what is in
part,
the foreground then?
Okay, so it's a plane part.
One big, very obvious piece of plane debris, quote unquote.
Yes, okay.
That's
we
what's in
can
the
see
foreground.
it is clearly from a plane. And that's
if I
one
can
step.
also add
That's
in
one
that
step. That's what it's looking at the picture. It's looking at the Pentagon from a perspective of looking at pictures taken on that day, that we can understand that we clearly see a piece of plane lying on a lawn in front of the Pentagon.
Let me
then
reiterate
we can ask
that
ourselves one thing: how did it get there? How did
explosions, Ray? Explosions. Just to cite your own favorite topic, explosions from the building.
let me just reiterate that none of these.
Explosives explode. Buildings are made of brick and stone and steel. They do not explode. So we have we have explosions. Planes do not explode. Buildings do not explode.
Wait, did you just say planes do not explode?
Planes do not explode. Planes are made of aluminum.
Even with all the jet
tires,
fuel on board?
there's a lot of things but
There's a communication breakdown. Hang on, Ray. Let me clear some things up here. Ray comes from a flagration. I think it's what the term is. It's kind of like when we say nanothermite isn't really an explosive. It's more of a. Hang on, let me just finish my point. Like Niels Harrit says, nanothermite isn't explosive. It's more like a incendiary propellant. Ray comes from the point of view that the plane doesn't explode as much as it. I think it's flagration, or I forget how.
Deflagration instead of conflagration.
And then I also want to make a point that through multiple FOIA requests, many of them, as I understand it, none of these plane parts are cataloged or have been revealed where they're stored. So it's not that we can't say that there haven't been plane parts. The government won't tell us which plane parts, have been categorized, identified, and stored anywhere. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The question is, how did this plane part, which we can clearly see is part of a plane, how did it get there? How did it get there?
It was placed there by the conspirators who did the crime.
That's a theory.
Absolutely
that's a theory, but if you cannot explain the theory in the sense that you have pictures of people placing it there, it's only a theory you can have in your own head.
That is speculating.
We do have lots of pictures of people walking around the grounds with pieces of what appear to be planes in their hand. And this, by the way, to say this is part of a plane, we don't know that's part of a plane.
Yes, it is. For fuck's sake,
we don't know. We don't know because it's not categorized.
It's a freaking. You're not. If you have a freaking piece of fuselage and it breaks off, you're not going to have a freaking number on that piece of fuselage.
Oh man, see
it's
that?
An exploded piece of. It's an exploded aircraft.
That says something.
Pieces of it.
This particular
every
piece
that gets exploded is going to have freaking a number associated with it. It's absolutely absurd to think
is very indicative of the crime scene being staged, and the reason.
No, it isn't. What did it look like?
Let me finish my point before you start to debunk it. Okay, let me finish my point.
Go ahead, Adam.
The point is, this particular piece has red and white paint on it, which is indicative of the American Airlines logo. Now, the American Airlines logo actually occupies about 5% or less of the fuselage of the plane. Okay, so this particular piece, there's about a 5% chance that that piece would have any paint from the logo area, which would identify it as the plane, correct?
100% of the plane was part of the incident. So there you go.
Well, I'm trying to get you to understand that most of the pieces of recognizable debris have plane logo on them. There's several.
No, they don't.
Like this. They don't. Well, really? Okay. Well, I could sit here and pull them up for you and then prove that you're incorrect about that. Would you like me to do that?
Go for it.
Okay. It's in our presentation that we just did in front of Richard Gage. We showed 3 separate pictures of 3 separate pieces of debris that all had this particular logo paint on it. Okay? Now the chances are 1 in 20 that any piece of debris would have that logo on there, because the logo only occupies 5% of the total fuselage of the plane. Therefore, it is 1 in 20 chance that a piece like this would appear on the lawn. Most of the pieces, 19 times out of 20, this piece would just be fuselage with no paint whatsoever. Okay?
That's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Here's why. Let me explain why.
Oh, that's absurd. I see.
Yep, absolutely, sir. Here's
Okay,
why.
because you say
The
so.
plane
I see.
exploded.
Let's not use inflammatory words. Just make your
Yeah.
statement.
No, it's
It's
not
absurd.
inflammatory. It's absurd because the plane exploded. You're not going to sit there and tell me about the explosive dynamics of an aircraft and say that
You see
in order to come up with
painted
a
area
statistic,
on this picture, Ed?
listen to what I'm saying.
Am I talking to
okay?
Ed?
Let me see what I'm saying.
See
If
the,
you're gonna-
you see
if
the
you can't-
painted American Airlines
Okay,
logo
hang
right
on.
there?
Let me finish what I'm saying. The plane exploded. Pieces of it went everywhere. You can't discern how many pieces of the plane are going to be part of that explosion. How many
I'm not
pieces it's
trying
going to
to do
explode
that.
into.
I'm
Well,
not
yeah,
trying
because
to
you
do
just
that, but
so
you
don't
won't let me finish my point,
listen,
so I
let me
could
finish.
make my
You
point.
could have 1,000 pieces of the American Airlines logo.
Right,
as
but
part of that
the
explosion.
three that we know of
Let
that
Ed
the
finish his
government
statement.
points to the most all happen to have that particular piece of the American part of the fuselage where it says American. You see that?
Okay, but
That's
Adam,
that's
Adam,
being
let Ed
generous.
finish. Because
That's
he's trying
being
to finish.
generous to say that that occupies 5% of the fuselage.
So what you're saying is American Airlines Flight 757 hit the Pentagon.
No, I'm saying this is like the planted passports. Okay.
How?
They planted
You guys, how do you
specific.
explain the APU
Well,
door?
let me
How do you explain the
finish.
strut?
Ed, let
me
him be a
how do you
devil's
get the
advocate.
words out of my
How
mouth
do you explain the
before
strut?
you interrupt me, and maybe
Because your
I can
premise
make
is
the
wrong.
point.
Your premise is
Maybe I
incorrect
can
right off the
make the
bat.
point if you let me get the words out of my mouth.
Ed, let him
How about
talk now.
that?
You guys need to let each other talk.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. This is called an orgy of evidence, where specific evidence is planted to lead people in a specific direction, like the planted passports. Okay. There's no way in hell those passports survived those impacts. Okay.
Other
they're
pieces of paper
planted.
survived the impact. Other pieces of paper survived the impact.
Okay.
Therefore,
Well,
that's
if
incorrect.
this is going to be his show, then go ahead and talk. You don't
All right.
need to hear what I have to say. Go ahead.
But your premises are incorrect. There was other pieces of plane,
You don't even know what my premise is because you won't let me get it out.
You just said that there's no way that a passport would have survived the impact. I'm telling you
Correct.
that there's other very, very, very fragile pieces of material that survived the impact.
How many other passports
More fragile than passports.
How many passports at the three scenes survived, and what percentage of those were belonged to alleged hijackers?
It was there's 2%.
5%.
What I understand, 2 of the alleged hijackers. There's also other.
This
there's
is
also
a common tactic that you run into all the time. It's called filibustering, where a person wants to make a point and then you get filibustered and you can't even make the point.
But here's the problem.
People just start talking over you.
But here's the problem. When you make a statement like that, I have to stop you right away because the statement is incorrect right from there. Because
No.
you're making and then you're going to be allowed me.
It's not incorrect.
Want me to?
It's not
then you want me
incorrect.
to?
This
Yes,
is
it is.
indicative of
It's
planted
factually
evidence, and I'm
incorrect.
just going to keep talking over
Go for
you,
it.
just like the way you talk over me.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Make your point.
Percentage-wise, there's only very, very few pieces of debris that are identifiable as plane debris. Like all these pieces you see in the background here are not identifiable necessarily as plane debris. They could be something else blasted from the inside of the building. Okay. There's about just a handful of pieces that are big enough to say, hey, that's definitely fuselage. Okay. And for all of those pieces, or at least 3 of them that I have seen, to have this particular paint scheme on them, this particular logo piece, you're looking at 20 times 20 times 20 are the odds that all 3 of those pieces would have that section of fuselage that has the logo on it. Okay. And it's very obvious why they want this piece photographed specifically more than anything else. Okay, because it's got the piece of the American Airlines lettering on it. That tells you right there that it's a planted piece of evidence. They want you to see this and draw that conclusion. Exactly the way they want you to see the passports that miraculously made it out. And draw your conclusion from that. Oh, there was real hijackers on the plane. Sure there were. Yeah, the passport flew out of his luggage, flew through the fuselage, flew through the side of the building, and landed on the street in New York undamaged. Oh, sure.
All right, Ed, your turn.
I think he's getting beat there. I want to make sure he finishes.
And I know Adam Eisenberg's had his hand up for a long time. Okay.
All right.
This is orgy of evidence, or orgy of evidence.
I
Clearly
Adam,
planted.
I want to say something about these letters, because there's something there. What you're saying, what you're talking about, the letters, the pieces of debris, plane debris with American Airlines letters on them, were mostly found in the neighborhood of the firehouse, and these were recognizable by their color of the red, white, and the silver of the plane. And they were photographed a lot, and these were presented in the press a lot. That's very true what you're saying there. And I think what is remarkable about what is there is that the official story says that the plane went into the building, but clearly you can see that that's not the case. There is plane debris outside of the building. And that's where the official story makes a very, very strange, because they say the plane went into the building, everything.
Right.
But they leave out the pieces of debris which are outside of the Pentagon.
Maybe that's because there was no plane, right?
There's a freaking piece of aircraft landing gear strut inside the freaking Pentagon, all charred, part of the fire. You're not going to get that from a missile, et cetera, et cetera.
Where are the
You
serial
have all
numbers?
kinds of other debris that was inside the Pentagon. You have the compressor parts that belong to an RB 511 RB211 type 535 power plant.
Which again, multiple FOIA requests have not turned up any catalog of any.
There's not going to be there's not going to be a catalog of that. You're going to collect the evidence. You're going to put it into an evidence bag. It's going to have a chain of custody, but you're not going to catalog.
None of that.
What are you going to?
Because
what are you going to call it? It's like, oh, piece of plane debris, piece of plane debris, piece of plane
Well,
debris.
the
Like you just
FAA
did.
does very detailed investigations after plane crashes, and they catalog everything. Sometimes they even reconstruct the plane after the
Yeah, they do when they don't know what happened.
And
they don't know what happened
they
to it.
verify serial numbers as
I love you guys, but I got to wrap this up because I'm going to miss dinner. The bar closes at 8.
We got to let
I want to let Adam.
Yeah, I know. Adam
Eisenberg.
Adam, you were going to say something, brother?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you guys, every single thing in that plane down to the nuts and bolts will have serial numbers, every single thing. And I also just want to make one last closing statement. There are people in this room that I want to thank that have spent extensive time with me, starting to go through the evidence that I have to show that there were nefarious efforts that were strategically placed on site, and that these people had the highest level of intelligence access. They even admit in their own words having access to this scene, secret access to this scene, both before and during the event. I have these people on words, mincing words with the incident commanders. And so, these are not just make-believe things for me to garner some type of attention. Multiple people in this room have started to see my evidence. And so I just want to put that out there. But yeah, really my comment really was to really drive home that every single one of the requests have come forward, and none of them have shown any evidence of any types of serial numbers. And every single one of those parts that you guys see are going to have them. So I can verify that.
Thank you. Around the room for everybody, just a quick 30
Yes, I can.
seconds. Thank you,
Yeah,
Adam.
I'd love to see if you can verify, that'd be wonderful. I would like to see that.
30 seconds around the room, each person, please, so I can make dinner. Craig, you're first on my list here. Anything for the group?
No, I think just the thing about the debris is, I mean, Ed said on a number of occasions, he jumped on Adam when he said, when you have an incorrect premise, I have to interrupt you. Well, I could have interrupted him several times when he kept saying a plane exploded over the Pentagon, at the Pentagon. I would say that's absolutely false, and we've got loads of evidence to support the idea that that's false. So I'll just throw that in.
Thank you. We'll continue this next month. Adam Ruff, anything for the group?
Well, other than what I just said, I wouldn't need to say anything else other than we have a clear pattern of planted evidence from the government, the passports being the most obvious example, but also the parts. And if you recall, there was a line of people arranged on the lawn of the Pentagon, and they walked the length of the Pentagon lawn in front of the whatever happened there, and they were picking up debris. Now that's in complete violation of the law, because the FBI or the FAA had not even gotten investigators to the scene yet, and these guys are already picking up plane parts and evidence and tampering with the crime scene. So it's very, very clear that evidence planting and fakery was involved in the whole thing. And by the way, Ed, I got this shirt. You can see Loose Change Final Cut. I got this shirt in New York with Bruno Breweiler when we went there to form We Are Change Los Angeles, by the way. So I know a lot of you guys think I wasn't in on the formation.
No, I know you were part of the, I know you were organizing member. I actually have the paperwork that has your name written on it, and okay. I don't dispute that whatsoever.
Just wanted to clear that up.
I have to actually correct Nelson and Adam on that, so don't worry. I got you covered there.
That's freaking cool. Right on. Ray, you're up.
Yeah. I want to end with one last photo. Just looking at the Pentagon.
Man, you're killing me. 30 seconds. I want to get my dinner.
Just look at it. Look at it.
Right.
And really try to get your head around it, because it's all about what's there. No,
up against the firehouse, same piece.
Yeah. But it's
those are different pieces.
It's a different piece. It's a different, but you see the letters from American Airlines in the red and white.
Yep.
And it's clearly that this piece is from the front of the plane, and it ended by the firehouse. So keep that in mind. That it's not from the tail end of the plane. So it's before the wings. Everything before the wings has these letters from the cockpit till where the wings begin. There, the American Airlines is on the plane, and that piece was in front of the firehouse.
Yep.
So the plane, that means that the front of the plane actually did not penetrate the Pentagon, and I find it fascinating that we're not looking at why these letters there at firehouse. So that's why I want to end it, that we get our head around that one. Just make a story that you can place these letters there, and not by people carrying them, but it's remarkable that those letters were found there. Remarkable.
Okay.
Thank you. Really interesting.
Xander, you're up. Yeah. Thank you, Ray.
Perfect. Ray made my point. I realized when you guys were talking further evidence of planted stuff, those lettering, that's from the front of the aircraft. Where does the plane explode from? From the wings, right? So if it's traveling in at 5:30, how did those parts end up outside? I think it's just a further example of planted stuff on the lawn. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I did enjoy this one.
Thank you. Adam Eisenberg, anything else for the group? Nothing, Ed?
Yeah, when the plane hits the Pentagon, it there was talk about how the skin of the Pentagon, skin of the fuselage peeled back. It was like taking the skin and peeling it back, and then as it kept penetrating through the Pentagon, and that could be an explanation of why you have the front of the letters of the aircraft. You have an explosion, and then subsequent explosion dynamics take over from there. So that could be an explanation.
Yep. Thank you, Sandra. Last but not least, anything for the group?
I'm just going to quickly put it out there. Not all of that evidence to me can be easily explained if these parts or some of the most critical parts were put. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That these parts were planted inside the building, inside the walls where there were renovations happening, and with an explosion, they were blasted out into the lawn. So that's kind of where I'm coming down on the plane parts. I don't think anybody carried them there and put them there with their hands. I think they were pre-planted and exploded out of the building.
Thank you. And I'm seeing 1 month, 4 weeks from now as the 11th of June.
Yeah, well, you can go either way, 11th or 18th. It doesn't really.
Since we already said 18th to whoever left, Mark, we'll just keep it at the 18th then.
Okay.
All right. So if you guys, thank you all for participating in this. I love hearing you guys talk because this is not my focus, but I know you guys are all about it, and I appreciate all the conversations very much. So see you guys in a month. Have a great week. Thank you guys.
Bring reinforcements.
Yes.